right, it's finally here. Ed Calderon is on the Shawn Ryan Show. And yes, we've read all 2,282 emails requesting why the hell has Ed's episode not been released yet. But before I give it to you, just a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Vigilance Elite. That's me. Head over to vigilanceelite.com, hit the training tab. We have over 100 videos of tactical training and prepping shit too, where we teach everything from how to politely remove somebody out of your way who might be creating some issues, to if you're just that guy or lady who's looking to get proficient with a firearm and just learn the basics to protect your family. We have that on there. And while you're at vigilanceelite.com, head over to the store, buy yourself a bag of gummy bears and whatever else is in there. Now enjoy the show.
Think about this. The largest, fastest growing cartel in Mexico was this new generation cartel. Grew exponentially in influence and power, not just in Mexico, but in the US during the COVID epidemic. One of their biggest money makers outside of drugs is trafficking, human trafficking of all kinds. We live in a country where people are talking about reparations for slavery when there's actual slavery still in this country. During training, they would get a dog that they would, take care of for a few weeks. They would sleep with it and feed it and all this type of stuff, name it, and then they would have to kill it and eat it.
Why is China's interest in Mexico becoming so strong?
It's your Achilles heel as a country. The Sinaloa cartel runs a lot of their distribution with some of the local black gangs in places like Chicago. So we use them by proxy. I was covered in blood. My clothing was covered in blood. My sneakers, my socks, feel in my toes.
Welcome back to the Shawn Ryan Show. This is episode 007. To kick things off, I want to say thank you to all the patrons out there. We have an overwhelming response on Patreon, which is supporting the show. And some news with that. We will be taking 2 volunteers from our Tier 3 group, and I'm going to put them through a mindset challenge. So if you're on Tier 3, maybe you'll get picked. 2 volunteers, we're looking at hopefully mid-December. Moving on from that, thank you to everyone who left us an iTunes review. If you can't support us on Patreon, please at least take one moment, go to iTunes, leave us a review. That really helps us with the show. With that being said, hit the like button, leave a comment, and it's time to introduce our next guest, 007. 007 is a Mexican-American immigrant who did it the right way. He immigrated to the United States to evade the Mexican drug cartel. He is considered an expert in the space of narco trafficking and Mexican drug cartels. He's a real-world MacGyver. He is TSA's worst fucking nightmare. He's seen it all and been face-to-face with the cartels in the most real, vivid, dangerous ways possible. Ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to present Senor Ed Calderon. Well, Ed, I am fucking super excited that you're here, man. We've been trying to get this going for several months now, and finally hit a date that works for both of us. But you are like the current narco expert, and Americans, I think everybody, but Americans are completely infatuated and interested in that subject matter. And there's so many shows out and documentaries, and it's been like that for a long time, and to include myself. So I can't wait to, dive into some of that stuff. And me personally, a lot of people don't know this, but I lived in Colombia for almost 5 years, and was addicted to cocaine down there, and kind of immersed myself in that narco culture because I got more addicted to the rush of being around it than I was the actual drug. And I'd kind of like to, compare notes to some of the stuff that you've seen and some of the stuff that I've experienced and on a low level, and being around that kind of shit. And so anyways, I'm super fucking pumped you're here, man.
I'm excited to be here, man.
So, yeah. But I always start everything out with a gift.
Okay.
So,
first off, always hear if it's ticking. Always drop the cell phone far away from it, right? On the radio.
Yeah.
That's what they do, right? That's how you know what somebody is. Oh, thank you. It's like that's cool. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Oh, yeah.
Some gummy bears.
All of it. All about that right there.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, man.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Feel free to dig in.
That's pretty heavy. I wonder what that may be. Oh, look at that. Look at that thing right there.
Yeah.
I wonder what this fits.
It might happen to fit that right there. But I did a ton of research on you, and you have this thing for golden guns.
Well,
so.
I mean, I think it's a Mexican to me. Some for some reason, I think it's the Aztec and a little bit of the Spaniard mixed into there. The first enhanced interrogation in the American continent was done by the Spaniards burning the feet of Moctezuma so they could, Moctezuma could admit where the gold was hidden.
No shit.
So I think it's probably it stems back to that gold lust. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. That's an amazing piece right there.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, that goes to a 50 cal Desert Eagle, gold plated, and so I figured, the first break we take, I haven't broken that thing in yet, so we'll jet out back and blow some shit up and see what she's made of. But have you shot one of those?
Yeah, I have. I found 2 of those guns in a water barrel somewhere in Baja that were traced back to the Fast and the Furious debacle way back when. They're very sought after by some of the higher ups on both sides of it. There was a army general that used to be part of the presidential protection detail that would carry around one of those things.
No shit.
They usually the officers in the army in Mexico don't get height requirements, so the guy was pretty short, So he carried one of those in the leather holster underneath his jacket, Why? I don't know. He's trying to make up for something, probably.
Yeah. Why not?
but it's a pretty interesting gun. Gold guns have a long history down there. From Chalino Sanchez and his 38 commando gun to El Chapo's famous pistol that had his Forbes 100 top 1,000 number on there. Yeah.
Is it like a status symbol?
It is. That's how you know who's in charge or who are the higher ups in some of the cartel parties. You'll see those gold guns floating around. It's kind of more of a Sinaloa thing. Each of the regions in Mexico have their own thing. I don't know exactly where that comes from, but there's a cult to a forbidden saint in Sinaloa, Malverde, Jesus Malverde. It's a guy with a mustache, and basically Mexican Robin Hood is the clearest way to kind of describe him. Back in the turn of the century, he was a famous bandit that would rob the rich people coming in through the town and I mean, he would the loot that he would get from them would be handed out to the townspeople. Eventually, he pushed his luck too much, and he got shot in the leg. He knew he was almost going to be caught. The government put on a 10 gold coin a reward for his capture. And he told one of his best friends, according to the legend, he told one of his best friends to turn him in and get the money and disperse it to the townspeople. So he was hung from a tree, and the order was not to bury him, to leave him there to rot.
No shit.
Eventually, somebody in the town prayed to him because when he was alive, he would help out the townspeople with money and whatever. One of the townspeople prayed to him, said, "You helped me in life, now help me in death, and I'll make sure to bury you." And that was his first miracle. He fell down from the tree, and each of the townspeople, instead of burying him, they just put a rock over his body. Eventually, it's a pile of rocks there, which later on turned into his grave, and later on turned into a shrine. So the whole gold thing is kind of related. I think it's probably related to that 10 piece of gold reward that was set up for him. So it's an interesting kind of probable link to the whole gold fascination, how some of these things are used as status symbols.
Damn, that's interesting. Well, Ed, you're number 007. So yeah,
good.
It's a pretty big episode.
Nobody read too much into that, though.
Yeah, right. But so you consider yourself a non-permissive environment specialist.
Yeah.
And you run an Instagram page, Ed's Manifesto, and you teach courses on, how to blend in, how to survive, how to escape and evade. And after talking with you a little bit, it seems kind of like a hodgepodge class full of skills that are seem to be very resourceful, and I think that is fascinating. I actually wanted to go to your course in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
That was when we were going to try to do this first, and I didn't do it because I needed to prepare for this.
Yeah.
But I do want to go to one of your courses and get that experience.
I mean, it's hood rat shit. That's what it is. I mean, I wish I could call it something cool, like field craft or trade craft or something like that. But it's realistically, it's me going and doing a class and recounting the experiences and the conversations of all the people that I've kind of had to meet, talk to, converse with, and learn from during my whole experience in Mexico working for the government. Interesting thing, actually, the Ed's Manifesto tagline came from an NSW guy that I trained with.
No shit.
So I would always have a moleskin notebook that I would write down things in, as far as like class notes.
Yeah.
Not a very common thing for Mexicans to do that, though. So I was in Coronado training with NCIS guys. Some of them were former team guys. They were doing a combat medical class for us. So like the first time I saw a tourniquet, or the first time I ever trained how to pack a wound, was there with some of those guys. There's what are you writing in your little manifesto was the thing that he kept asking. No, I'm just writing some notes, right? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just fucking with you. So that's where the tagline Ed's Manifesto actually came from.
That's cool.
I've always made it a point to collect and take down notes and record, and anything I see of interest, I would always kind of collect from conversations with people that we would detain. I never made the mistake of dehumanizing my enemy. I think that's a common mistake that I see a lot of people do. What I mean by dehumanizing the enemy, it's not about celebrating him. It's not about emulating him. It's about learning from him. So, example, 15-year-old Fernando. 15-year-old Fernando is the guy that distributes cocaine and heroin to a lot of the people that travel into one of the zona rosas, or the tolerance zones in Tijuana. That's where all the prostitution takes place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Legal prostitution, allowed prostitution. We're on him for a while. We finally caught him, caught him slipping. He was buying a cell phone for his girlfriend and that's where we got him. Handcuffed him, put him in the car. He got free of the handcuffs, ran. A few of our guys caught him, and a few of them wanted to beat him up. I said, calm down, grabbed him, took him back to the car, zip tied him and handcuffed him this time, and asked him, how did you get out of those? And he proceeded to show me, right?
Yeah.
He used a small piece of metal from a street sweeper, a street sweeper bristle. And he would always carry like a rare magnet or a magnet to pick some of those up, and he would always hide them on his person. And then he would grab the handcuff itself and flip it to the side so it looks like it's closed, but it's actually open. Those two tricks I learned from him, I've been showing across the country to some high-level people and some low-level people, and they always get amazed by it.
Yeah.
And I always say I learned this from a 15-year-old kid in Tijuana.
Well, I mean, you call it hood rat shit, but all it is fucking real shit that actually works that people have come up with, and you've documented it all and put it into, your manifesto. How many different, like roughly in an estimation, or maybe if you do have an exact number, but how many different types of these skills do you have documented?
I mean, I have a lot of VHS tapes of some conversations I had with some of these people.
Yeah.
I have a lot of digital recordings of some of the conversations I had with some of these people. I have pictures and moleskins related to hood rat fortifications on some safe houses, to steel water and steel doors meant to negate the use of an angle grinder or of a battering ram. Basically, the water reverberates the pressure on the steel. And I all those notes and pictures and stuff like that. That's I gather. I have no idea how much I have, but I don't hoard it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people hoard that stuff. I've shared some of that stuff pretty openly on my social media.
Yeah.
And every time I get a chance to train with or go and advise in some capacity, some unit, some group, group of people, like I got the opportunity to show some of the stuff that I know to some of this at the Secret Service Academy to some of those guys. Specifically how to hide things that are non-ferrous and non-magnetic and how to smuggle things through points of security. And it was surprising how some of those simpler things surprised them, how some of those were unknown. But that's kind of the point behind most of the stuff that I do. I want to put this into the hands of people, even the public, the general public itself. People sometimes get afraid when I share something that to them was secret. An example of this is I shared a picture of zip tie restraint, homemade zip tie restraint, with an angle cut in the inside of them. So when they would put them on, the angle cut in the zip tie would stab into your wrists. Now, that was pretty unknown to the general public, but it was widely used in Mexico by some abduction groups. The reason they made that way is that a lot of these guys, and I actually got to see an open laptop and doing some site exploitation stuff down in Mexico. And I got to see their browsing history, which was fascinating to me, what are these guys looking at? And YouTube, escape and evasion videos. People escaping from zip ties, doing the classic bursting method to escape from them. So they decided to put angles in them so that when you try to do that, you would hurt yourself or basically commit suicide. Now, that is a product of evolution. They are evolving. They're changing the way they're doing things. Yeah. And we as people that share some of that stuff are better served educating the public about some of these things. Yeah. So they can see how deep the hole goes, and they can counter that preparation that the bad guys have or the counter guys have to what we are going to plan to do to counteract that. And if we find ourselves in a situation like that. That's a small example of it, but things are evolving out there. People that have a lot of training in Mexico, like some of the people that I used to work with, are now working for the cartel. Yeah. Things are shared online and immediately get distributed to every single terrorist network out there in the world, and also most intelligence services as well. So that stuff gets propagated and shared, and it's a free-for-all when it comes to information. Yeah, and so then new tactics evolve.
because of that. But
an example of Hong Kong protesters using lasers. All it took was their action. Now they change the way people do things.
yeah,
So, some of those lasers you can source on places like Alibaba, and you can modify them easily by some of the stuff you see on YouTube. So that's a quantum leap over how they weaponize basically focused light.
yeah,
And it's fascinating to see that how an idea spreads like a virus in a way. The same thing with all the criminal methodology that I kind of share and expose. They see something they get horrified and surprised by it. Oh, Ed, why are you showing the criminals this? No, they already know it. I'm showing the people that live safely in the confines of whatever community they are a part of that have never been exposed to this. I'm sharing this to them so they can see how deep the well is, right? So they can keep their kids close, so they can put a sign on the well that the well is deep. I get a lot of the negativity I get is usually based on the whole, you shouldn't share this openly.
yeah,
There are things that I don't share openly, and usually things that I've seen that are kind of reserved or kind of really, I haven't seen that much out there. But once I do, I try and share some of those things so people can see what they are.
So you grew up in Tijuana, Mexico, and you started your law enforcement career in 2004.
Yeah.
And doing my research, it sounded like you were in med school. You wanted to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And it sounded like your law enforcement career was kind of something that you were doing just to get you by while you were in med school. And then you go on to say that it took a very different turn. And
yeah. So 9/11. Where were you at 9/11? What did you do after 9/11?
I was in the military.
Awesome. That was completely like beyond the scope of I didn't want to do anything weapons related. I didn't want to serve. I didn't want to do anything like that. 9/11 happened, and it turned the economy it put the economy in the toilet along the border region, specifically in Tijuana, which lives off the border, right? Border times went longer because of all the new security precautions, and the border was actually closed for the first time in recent history was during 9/11. That affected my family's business and my own ability to kind of maintain myself. And I couldn't afford to stay in medical school. So I had to look for options, right? Saw an ad in the newspaper that they wanted young, unmarried, no kids, bilingual young men for government work. I thought it was going to be community policing or some sort of information analysis type thing. And all of a sudden I was going through paramilitary training and getting my hair shaved off by a bunch of Mexican Gafe guys. And I didn't know what I was in for.
Yeah.
There was this open door when we go in there. The academy that I went to was a regional academy. It was basically a refurbished prison. So they made this prison in this hillside, and they discovered after they made it that there's a lot of fog there. So it wasn't an optimal place to put a prison.
Mm-hmm.
But a police academy, they can get away with that. So it was not good enough to be a prison, but they turned it into a police academy, which is fascinating.
Yeah.
We were treated. They told us at the start. There was this colonel there. He said, "We have two things for you: pan y verga, which is bread and dick." And guess what? Bread ran out 2 days ago, so all you're getting is dick, right? They had this open door policy there. You can just walk out if you wanted to. You wanted to quit. And they treated us like human refuse for about 2 months, 2-3 months. Basically, while we were going through that FBI background checks were being done, polygraph exams, background financial checks. They were looking into our families. And a lot of people would get pulled out during the whole process.
So just backtracking real quick. So you were already being fed into like almost an elite unit of the police force right from day one.
Yeah, they were training us up to do something, and I didn't know exactly what that was, but I was getting an idea because of the type of people that were training us, basically.
Yeah.
But I thought it was going to be an analysis job, listening to phone calls, maybe translating stuff that I would hear somewhere in an office somewhere, and all of a sudden I was getting handed a ballistic vest, a Glock, and a G3 rifle. Just told to go on. They would give us a badge, and then they would tell us, just don't put it on, this will get you killed if you see this badge.
Shit.
So yeah, it was pretty badly organized. The training was very low quality. I remember getting trained how to shoot Beretta 92 FS pistol, a 9mm Beretta 92 FS pistol, and I shot 20 rounds out of it while going through training, basic training there.
Shit.
And when I got out, I got a Glock inside of a case, and I've never seen a Glock before. It's like looking at this thing, like, where's the safety? Like, where's the, I was like trying to figure this out. It was that type of retarded low level training, and you make fun of the guys that get the AK-47 shot around them to get them acquainted to combat.
Yeah,
I was one of the guys on the ground getting shot with that AK-47 around to get them acquainted to. All it gave me was bad hearing and whatnot. That's a good way to make deaf and dumb people. But that was what we had. That's what they had to give us, right?
Damn.
That lasted about a little bit over 6 months, and then it was off to the races, and stepping into the beginnings of what turned into the drug war, like the major parts of the drug war.
How bad were the cartels at that time? When
they were pretty bad, but it was the beginning of the modern fractioning, which turned into like the worst parts of the drug war. This was right before Felipe Calderon, the conservative to the right president, basically declared open warfare on the cartels. This was a president before him was in power. He was starting to push for some of these policies. And all of a sudden we had 2006 roll around and it kicked off. It was like there was bad stuff and violence happening. But he basically militarized and basically gave a white card to governors across the country to do whatever they had to do to go after the cartels.
Shit.
So that's when things really got interesting. There was a lot of fractioning going on with high-level cartel guys being grabbed and the one cartel turning into two, allegiances being tested around the country, and kind of the violence being orchestrated by cartel on cartel and also government on government. So you would run into a town where the state police was on the payroll of one cartel, the local municipal police was on the payroll of the other cartel, and the local military barracks were on the payroll of another cartel. So it was, you trust no one, like the smoking man and the X-Man and the X-Files used to say. That's part of the first lessons that I got was trust no one.
Damn. When Calderon took over in 2006, from the research I did, it sounded like that was like a fucking switch got flipped.
Yeah.
And I read that they estimate over 250,000 people have been murdered.
Those are official numbers, so it's probably more.
Yeah.
Also, they don't count the people that went missing.
Yeah.
Body disposal turned into an industrial effort in places like Tijuana, where the famous stew maker was active. So what happened is that Felipe Calderon basically federalized the efforts against drugs, and he put the military into the fight. And he also took certain elements of the police forces and embedded them with the military, which was some of the stuff that I did, because we had arresting powers and they didn't. And also we knew our way around some of the places where they were operating. So one of the places where I worked was in Baja, and I got to see the stew maker, and actually got to meet him and talk to him. The stew maker was it was employed by by elements of the Sinaloa cartel. He used to actually work for the Tijuana, the Arellano Felix cartel, but there was a split that happened, and he went over to the Sinaloa side. He said that he was trained how to get rid of bodies by Israeli specialists that the cartels brought in to train them, right? And that was like suspect when I heard it. It sounds like something that's kind of made up. But then I saw some elements of actual experience and craft in what he was doing. So he basically made caustic soda to get rid of the bodies with a lot of stuff you can buy at any hardware store. Didn't get a lot of attention because he would always dress like an albañil, like a worker, like a construction worker. He would, make his caustic mixture, put a body in there without any clothing on. He would cut grid patterns on some of the tattoos and the face to get rid of that first. And he would dump that into a sand grater and get some of the solid pieces and put it in the next batch. That's a sign of craft. Somebody showed him that. So it makes me wonder. The amount of people that he got rid of as far as the bodies go is unknown. There's different estimates out there. I don't know. Like nobody knows. But a whole generation of young people disappear in that city.
Yeah. What are some of the estimations? 5,000. 5,000 fucking people.
That's one of the numbers that I heard.
One guy got rid of 5,000 bodies.
Yeah, he never murdered anybody though. He said he would just get bodies brought in. In a scene out of Auschwitz, where he was found, there was a room full of shoes and clothing. That was creepy as hell to see. Yeah. All those shoes and clothing belonged to somebody. And they just made these bodies disappear. One time I was working with one of the older guys. So there's a generation of guys that were on when I went in that didn't go through some of the security protocols that I went through. So some of them were more on the shady side than others. There is no such thing as not being being a cop in Mexico and not being shady somehow.
Yeah.
Even I was kind of shady, maybe. I don't know. But one of the older guys, we saw there was this pedestrian bridge and they had 3 bodies hanging from it, right? And I stood there and like, that's horrible. That's a horrible, cruel thing to do. Well, the older guy said, the body's a gift. You should be thankful for it. I didn't kind of get what he meant. So what do you mean, man? That's horrible. No, I mean, at least the family's going to get a body to bury and cry over. The body's a gift.
Damn.
So that, in a place where that hanging a body from a bridge is a sign of kindness.
Yeah.
That's a different kind of hell.
That can put some shit into perspective. Fuck, man. How long into your career, to your law enforcement career in Tijuana, did it take for it to become real? Where you were like, this isn't a fucking game.
As soon as I got out, probably the second day on the job, we were kind of spread out in Baja State, and I got to see immediately the no fucks given by the cartels.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember me and probably 8 other guys moving through downtown Tijuana in full kit, driving around in some marked vehicles, and getting the order to stop from the lead car that was in front of us, and we parked aside, and everybody ran out of the cars and adopted defensive positions. And a convoy of I'd say somewhere around 15 vehicles just passed right next to us. All of them, a few of them armored, all of them with AK-47s. Some of them had federal police uniforms. Some of them had army uniforms. We didn't know who they were. We're getting calls from the from the 911 service they have down there, from the municipal police that they were municipal cops, but they clearly weren't municipal cops. So we just got in a Mexican standoff with them. Nobody shot around, but they just passed by us. We called for support from the local police, and nobody showed up. So
how many of you guys were there?
Probably 9.
9?
9 guys.
What's that? 2 cars?
That's 2 cars, yeah.
And they had 15 fucking vehicles.
Yeah. So that's when I realized that there's no winning here. Not like this.
Fuck, man.
There's no winning, not like this. And
why do you think there were no shots fired?
They didn't feel threatened by us. They didn't have any fear. So they just passed by, and they actually went to a local little restaurant there and adapted positions around it, had dinner, and then went back to their cars and left.
Damn.
No support came on our end. So it's one of those, that's when you realize how fucked you are and how no support and how there's just no backing there. This was before the Felipe Calderon administration. Slowly but surely things changed. We started getting more support, started getting more vehicles, more people coming in. We started working directly with the military and directly with some federal operational police forces. Eventually getting fear put into the opponent, the enemy, right? The cartel guys. It took some time. At the start of it, it was just hopeless. Just hopeless.
Yeah.
Going through the motions. I think it took about a year into it that a few of my friends were killed. They used to rent out hotels for us to stay in. And we had this buddy system going on. So if you wanted to go outside, you had to have one of the buddy system, right? But you would have to inform that you were going out. They didn't inform. They went to the store, thought it was easy, so they just crossed the street, went to this convenience store. And they got picked up by some cartel guys dressed as federal agents. They had the blue uniforms and everything, with the patches, everything, like down to every detail. And they were taken. They were zip tied and put into a van. They were found 24 hours later. One of them had his ID screwed to his forehead. They were being hunted.
Yeah.
That's when, like, paranoia.
Less than a year.
That's less than a year. Shit. And I came out of there in a generation of 32 people, and a lot of them are gone. But those were the first really close ones to me that I saw just leave in a horrible way. They're all young, like I just been to a party with the girl, and I met the girlfriend of one of them. And it was a thing I told them, don't marry, don't get girlfriends, because you don't want to leave widows.
Yeah.
Just for perspective, it's a thing to be ashamed of or to hide if your profession is a cop, or at least it was back then.
Damn.
So because we're not depending on where you were, cops are, despised.
Yeah. So what would a typical day look like? What was your mission?
It depend on the time of my career. Like some of the hardcore stuff, I was attached to a director by the name of Lieutenant Colonel Izaola for the first part of his administration as directing us. He's the one that really changed things. Like he was the guy. I always equate him to a General Mathis type individual. He was a lieutenant colonel that came out of the War College in Mexico, career officer, went through a bunch of experience and eventually landed in a directorship out of the group that I worked for. He led from the front. I didn't have any specialty training protecting somebody, but I got assigned to his security detail at the start of his turn as a director, and I went out patrolling with him in Tijuana, That was probably one of the most life-changing, altering experiences. There's this guy. You see this guy. He refused to wear a lanyard, a strap on his rifle, so he'd carry his AR in his hand. Like a cowboy.
Nice.
He'd walk out of these vehicles, and every now and then would stop a high-level cartel guy, and he would walk up to him and like, "I'm here now. I'm in charge. So you better get your shit together. Because I'm coming after you." He would have these meetings with the whole group and just say, "I want villains. I want to fight fire with fire. If you're here for romantic reasons, just get the fuck out of the room. I want bodies, not detainees."
Did you like working for him?
I mean, I think he treated us like dog shit, but we felt the support.
Yeah.
He was very much a villain.
He's got your fucking back.
He was very much a villain, but he was our villain.
Yeah.
That's the feeling we got.
The loyalty.
For that, we would always see him in the front lines. We did this raid on his compound in Baja, where they guns, drugs, everything was going on. Stolen vehicles, money falsification. They were falsifying bills, and it was an insane compound we found out there. And they actually had a lion in there as well, that's a good, interesting part of the story. But when we went there, all of us basically approached it from different sides, and I remember approaching it from the beach, and we were kind of walking towards this compound. It had a bunch of bungalows there. Some of the bungalows were actually rented out, and some American families were staying there. Unbeknownst to them, there was all this stuff going on around them. So I remember being very low to the ground and hearing some rounds go off and stuff like that, and just being very low and kind of approaching this place and just looking to my sides and seeing this superhero character in the form of Lieutenant Colonel Lazola just standing there. And just the rounds were coming from over there. Like, you can't make this shit up. We hit this place, and he was with us throughout. He didn't hide somewhere or go to the background, and he was with us for all of it. It's probably one of the longest days as far as kicking doors in that I had in my life. There's a bunch of bungalows. Each time we would hit one, there was people and there was weird things and their guns, whatever. We hit all these bungalows. At the end of it, there was this weird door, like a steel door with a refrigerator with a bunch of frozen suckling pigs in it. I was like, what's going on here, right? I remember I had my MP5 with a light on it. One of the streamlight ones, the first one's the yellowish light. You remember those? I don't know how we live with that stuff. And turn out that yellowish light, with these really expensive batteries to get down there. Open the steel door and just go in there. And in the corner, like something out of a movie, this furry object just stood. And turn around, I could see its eyes light up with the light. It was a lion. They had a lion in a They had a pet lion because cartels. Ooh. They did one of those.
And you got a fucking MP5.
I have an MP5, and in my mind, I'm not. One of the last things I thought about was shooting it.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get out of the room. That was my whole thing. Ran out of the room, closed the door. Cierrele. It's like, and then we had the whole thing about now what do we do with this lion, right? Lieutenant Colonel Lazola walks in. I was like, what's in there? It's a lion. Okay, don't open the door. We won't. Right? Calm, collected guy. I mean, some of the things that we experienced were completely out of this world. I never saw him bat an eye. Right? That was. I think he was instrumental in turning the fear on the side of them.
Yeah.
He had about 8 or 9 assassination attempts on him during his time working down there.
Shit.
The last one took the use of his legs. Shot him in the back. He's confined to a wheelchair now, but he's still he's still very much a dangerous person. He's still very much a motivated guy. He's made a run for office for the mayor of Tijuana a few times. Actually, I've supported him during these runs, even out.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that never acknowledges people. He's like one of those leaders that any small hint of a pat on the back is just beyond him.
Yeah.
But he shared when I was started getting a bit more notoriety. He shared something of mine on his social media and said, "Oh, this man this one of the guys that I used to work with. You should listen to him. He's talking about some of the work we did." Yeah. And that was like a insanely surreal, just acknowledgement of my existence.
That felt awesome.
That was beyond awesome. And then I went over there and talked to him, and he humbled me back again. What's your name again? Yeah.
When you guys were conducting these raids, like this one that you were just talking about, for example, how many guys are with you, and how many guys were on the cartel side?
I mean, usually somewhere in the numbering in the 30s or 50s on our side, if it was a high level thing, and somewhere around 50 and 100 on the cartel side, depending on where we were and what we were doing. So a lot of times we were outnumbered, completely outnumbered, surrounded. We had to basically adapt a defensive position and just wait it out till the cavalry came in, usually in the form of the army or the Marines, depending on where we were.
Okay, so you guys would take a target down and then basically hand it over to a less specialized unit.
Yeah, so we would find things that were beyond the scope of our ability to guard or keep or move.
Like a fucking lion?
Yeah, like a lion, or like a lot of cocaine or a lot of weed or a lot of guns and a lot of people. And then we'd call in the military, and the military would come in and grab it. And back then there was a political thing. So the military, they wanted people to get more confidence in the ability of the military to combat, that the military was combating some of this stuff. The thing is that the military was not equipped to combat some of this stuff. They weren't a viable police force, but they wanted to gain more confidence. So a lot of the jobs that we would say, "Hey, we found all this stuff. Let the military, take it."
Yeah,
that was a lot of that going on back then, and there was a lot of corruption as well. At high levels. Recently, the head of the National Security Administration or police force in Mexico, under the Calderon administration, was arrested for cartel ties. So, I mean, again, trust no one.
Yeah,
trust no one. So, thinking back on that, we would, sometimes we would go after certain things, and we would be called off. So that it makes you think. Right. But I was just a cog in the machine, boots on the ground. Yeah. That's all I was.
How often were you guys going on raids? Was it every night? Was it twice a night?
Every night. Every night we would get something of interest, and off we went. Or we would get anonymous reports of armed people somewhere or whatever. And it was basically a race to see who could get there first, or it was a race to see what we could find first, right? So it was a nightly thing. A bunch of the people that I used to work with were all addicted to the same thing, adrenaline. They all wanted to be in it. They all wanted to be, some people were coming off a shift, and they would hear something was going on and would just flip that back on. Yeah. There's something to be said about the people you meet and you relate with under some of these conditions. There's a weird bond that happens with people. So we took everything personally that would happen to each of us. So things like having, I'm going off shift, and whatever happens, I'm fine. People would rush in, even on their breaks, But it was a nightly thing. We would get specific things that we would go after specific people, or we would jalar la hebra, as they call it down there. We would pull the string. We'd find a guy with a cell phone, and the cell phone had him with an AK, gold AK on it. And that would lead us to somebody else, and that would lead us to a house, and that would lead us to 2 water barrels buried with a bunch of guns from Fast and the Furious in his backyard. and that would lead us to somebody else. And it was sometimes one thing would turn into a couple of 3 nights of just raiding and hitting houses all at once.
Was there always shots fired?
Sometimes, a lot of times. I was in a few big ones. There's a famous one, La Cupula. It's like people can look this up. There's a lot of footage of that. La Cupula was basically a castle-like structure house in Tijuana, and had a giant dome on top of it. It looked like a mosque. There was a report of armed people inside of it. So responding units went there, and they started getting fire from on top of that cupola structure. So high vantage point, all of the advantages. So they got pinned down. Some of the federal police showed up, and then we showed up. We had G3s back then, so they were pretty good at shooting people from that were hiding behind bricks.
Yeah.
Some of the other guys had ARs and stuff like that. So it was an interesting back and forth in that regard. Back then, all of the police units showed up, like from the federal to the state to the local, and finally the Army showed up with a 50 cal. And
this is the same fight?
Yeah.
How long did this go on?
It took like 4 hours, maybe
4 hours,
5 hours. And this is in the middle of Tijuana. There's a daycare center next to it.
Jesus.
So we're evacuating some of the kids out of the daycare center. This time I was protecting a high-ranking politician, so we had access to armored suburbans. So we're bringing in the armored suburbans to see if we can evacuate some of these kids. It was a shit show. Everybody was shooting. Nobody knew who. Like some of the people who were showing up, there were cops were wearing civilian clothing, including us. So it was a shit show. Eventually, it subsided, and on the opened up some of the doors. The Army broke in and opened some of the doors to this place, and a fully uniformed municipal police officer stepped out. It's like, I jumped the wall from back then. Let's go through here. And like, all of us were like, that guy is probably part of that group over there. So he immediately got bagged. And when they went in, it was basically a place where they were keeping abducted people that they were ransoming out, and a lot of them got shot in the head. And some of the guys that were inside shooting out put zip ties on and handcuffs and pretended to be abducted.
Yeah.
I remember somebody commenting on the fact that the smell gave them away. They picked them up and they would smell fresh. Not like somebody's been sleeping in the same clothing for months.
Yeah.
And also they didn't have any raw wrist with the restraints, so they immediately got bagged and tagged too. A bunch of them were cops.
No shit.
Yeah. Police radios, and so we would use satellite radios, Matra systems. And they had those there too. It was apparently encrypted and very secure, but they had them.
When you were trying to evacuate, or when you and your team was trying to evacuate the children out of the daycare, is there like a mutual respect between the police and the cartel on sparing them, or
there's no.
Will they try to exploit that? And then like what Al Qaeda will do is they will look for targets opportunity that are fucking easy, that will make headline news.
Yeah.
And then try to twist it so that it makes it look like we did it.
I mean, there's pictures online about that firefight. You can see some of the agents, basically just 2 kids on each hand, just trying to extract them. Rounds were flying everywhere. Nobody was respecting anything. They were in a fight for their lives. Were cornered, so that was all they were up to. You can see them trying to snipe specific things. Like we had the helicopter flying overhead, and you could see them trying to hit that thing out of the sky. Yeah, I mean, they do definitely have elements of, hearts and minds going on within how they operate in some of these communities. And in some of the places that we went after them, they were the police element in the community. They were the guys that built the roads. They were the guys that built the church. They were the guys that would pay for the college educations of some of the kids there. They were the guys that built the school. They were the guys.
And I loved them.
Yeah, and that's true across Mexico. There's a few places like that in Mexico. I did a class in Sinaloa a few years back at Culiacan, the center of the Sinaloa cartel, basically. And I was driving through this road. It's a pretty rough road, and all of a sudden it turned into a nice road, very well lit, very well maintained. And somebody there told me this is the cartel built part of the road. So in a place like that, who is the governor there? Cartel guys or, some of these communities that they build, that they build around what they do are pretty insane. Kids rolling into a gas station with a Lamborghini Murcielago, wearing sandals, gassing it up and then driving it up to who knows where in the hills.
Yeah.
Kids just running around with AK-47s in the middle of town, guarding somebody that was high level. This is that's why I call it the upside down. Things are flipped in some of these places.
Yeah. How long were you in that element where you were doing raids on a nightly basis?
Probably somewhere along, probably 9 years.
9 years?
Probably 9 years of that.
9 fucking years.
9 years of that.
That's like 2,000. What is that? 2,700 something raids.
I mean,
that's a fuck ton of raids.
Well, that's when we talked last night at dinner. So I talked to you about how's your knees and how's your back, because that's usually what goes.
How much mention planning goes into one of these raids? Is it like we're fucking going?
Yeah, we're going. We're figuring things out. We got pretty good at figuring out how things were built and how a lot of the housing down there is pretty shitty. I mean, it's a lot of the economic housing is pretty like cut and paste basically. So we would know how things were built. Also, a lot of the shanty towns that we would work in were very flammable. Some of them were built out of cardboard or just tarp, so you wouldn't know what you would get. Sometimes we would hit what apparently was a shanty town type house, and then would end up in a marble floored 4-story house with Doberman pinchers that have pedigrees guarding the outside of it.
Yeah.
So we would never know what we would get. There's some surveillance went into some of the work we did, and we'd try and figure things out. We tried to prepare as best we could for it. But we just, I remember just experience would make us gather things in what we would carry. So I remember hitting this house once, clear door there, just went up to the door, started banging on it, then crowbarring it, angle grinder. Eventually we ripped that thing off, and it was a wall behind it. It was a fake door. It was a fake front door.
Shit.
And we were like, slow clap, you had to applaud that. And there's this secret door tunnel system thing on the back, and nobody was in there when we got in there. It was the ingenuity, basically. It was a back and forth ingenuity thing.
Yeah.
We would try and always figure out how we would get into some place or how we could get out of it. Also, you would go to some places and it wasn't just that house. It was also the house next door. It was also the house over there. It was also the kids on the bike over there had a smartphone that called any sort of activity in there. So we had to do things like cut the water supply, the water mains into some of these places so we couldn't flush things. We would have to figure out the ways of hitting everything simultaneously, so we'd have to spread out. Communication was a big issue. And also imagine going and hitting several houses in the same area at once. Crossfire's a bitch.
Yeah.
And there's just no way to kind of figure that out at times.
So are most of these barrios, is the entire neighborhood on the payroll?
Some of them are, or if they're not on the payroll, they're related to them in some way, like blood related to some of the people working there. So it's in their best interest to call in, hey, there's
Yeah.
A bunch of weird cars here, or some people that are not from here moving in with guns heading your way.
And not to mention they're supporting the whole fucking community.
Sometimes, yeah. So again, it was a losing battle.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways. I mean, some of the success we had, the President Felipe Calderon recently wrote kind of a biography on his term, and he specifically mentions Baja as a victory for him. And it was, we calmed things down in that part of the country. It was one of the only successes that his whole, counter narcotic drug counter cartel effort had. But it didn't last.
Yeah.
It didn't last.
Well, that's huge. That was actually my next question. I was going to ask, out of over 2,700 fucking raids that you've done, if you felt like you've made a dent, and but you did, and then it went back.
Yeah. So I mean, the raids, and then getting to work in as a bodyguard and an advisory role for for a governor that worked in Baja, and then I'm just trying to figure out, all the effort that was being put into finding these two large groups of cartels that were fighting for the richest drug route on the planet that goes right through Tijuana into California. It's one of the richest drug routes for a reason, because it feeds the largest drug market in the world in the form of the U.S. and specifically California. So you would hit somebody high level, you'd send them to prison, and the next day there's two more guys setting up. Or you pacified this area, and all of a sudden, well, there's no competition here, so other forces start moving in discreetly, and eventually you would revert back to the same problem. I think the main problem is a lack of a long-term plan when it came to all of that. All the plans were 5-6 years related to the presidential term that was currently in power. So a presidential term would end, and everything that worked got discarded. Everything that didn't work got discarded, and everybody would start off from square one. An simple example of this: Felipe Calderon decided to militarize the police forces, so basically turn them into more of a militaristic approach to fight some of these cartels. The guy that replaced him said, "We're not going to do that. We're going to do something completely different." So they made a new police force and militarized it, right? Yeah. And then the current administration is a leftist guy, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador. Very to the left, crazy guy. Not a very good president. The first thing he said, "I'm going to do completely the opposite of what all these people did. I'm going to amnesty for the cartels, abrazos no balazos policy, which means hugs, not bullets. We're going to completely do something different." And the first thing he does is he forms a National Guard force, and he puts the military in charge of it. So he's like, this is the same thing again, right? Yeah. So it's a systemic form of amnesia. Yeah. Every 6 years, they forget everything and just do it over again. And everybody that was related to whatever efforts that succeeded in the past get vilified or get persecuted or prosecuted. That's the thing that's happening now. So one of the governors that I work with, a very honorable man, like finding somebody like that in politics in Mexico is a rare thing. But I trust that man with my life and the life of my family if I had to. He's a very stand-up guy. I witnessed his efforts. He didn't hide, He really believed in what he was doing. And now he's being persecuted for cartel ties, which I know for a fact they're bogus. But it's a leftist president now, and he's going after all the conservative to the right administrations in his past. That's the thing.
He's not addressing the fucking problem.
No. The easiest thing is to blame who was before, right? So that's...
How long did it take for It sounds like you cleaned up Baja pretty fucking good and made a massive
It
dent.
was the most dangerous. Tijuana was on the most dangerous cities in the world list. It was number one, and it ceased to be on that list after some of the efforts that I was involved in, and some of the people that, like Lieutenant Colonel Lazola, took charge of the local police forces there. He disarmed all of the Tijuana police force and cleaned it up, which was an insane thing to do. It dropped off that list and things pacified. Cartel members and cartel convoys ceased to be in the open thing. They would, like when I started, you would see these fully armed cartel convoys just in the middle of the day, just drive through the city and abduct somebody and just take them, and nobody would do anything. He put fear into the equation. That in the open presence stopped.
Yeah.
Abductions for ransom were a big thing in the city. That kind of lowered and stopped for a while, and things went back to normal, right? So much back to normal that a lot of protests started happening to get the military to go back to their military barracks, to get the police to stop being militaristic and to turn into more of a community policing force. So again, bad times create bad men, strong men, good times, and we went into that cycle.
Yeah.
And now we're back again into the whole. Tijuana is but I think it was last year was the most dangerous city on the planet.
No shit.
Murders per capita. And then there's a new generation cartel allyship with the Tijuana cartel that is fighting for control over Tijuana with the Sinaloa cartel. And it's back to square one.
Yeah. Damn.
7-8 people die every night in Tijuana.
Damn.
Related to the cartel violence.
So kind of wrapping up your career, you talk about kind of being recruited by the cartel. And I kind of wanted to go a little deeper into that. And I would imagine that you were recruited several times, or you had already said that you had friends that have been recruited out of the police or maybe the military and into the cartel.
I mean, it was an offer, you know. It was always, you would always get intermediaries approaching you like, hey, Ed, like, you know, this is much money. All it takes is for you to work with us, you know. But it was obvious to anybody, you know, as soon as you take an offer like that, you're owned, you're theirs. If you fuck up, if you're not useful, or if somebody finds out you're working for somebody that they're not a part of, you'll either get arrested or get killed by the rival group that you're working against, or your career ends, right? So I got a lot of offers, a lot of them. Never took any of them. A lot of my friends and a lot of the people that I used to work with did, or eventually would put into a position where there was no choice. Plata or plomo, silver or lead. Colombian term, but it's popular in Mexico.
Yeah.
Another code for it was one finger up and one finger down. You know, what do you want? You want plata or plomo? You know, you want to be on the ground, or you want to stay up here in the world of the living? I wasn't greedy. There's a lot of people that went into policing in Mexico that wanted to find $1 million and bury in a wall or something, or just be on the payroll of somebody. I remember going to some of the meetings at the office and seeing, you know, some new Hummers outside and some of the guys owned. It's kind of scratching my head at it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of us went through a certification process called CALIA. It's an American certification process. And with that, you know, a lot of confidence exams, polygraph testing, all this type of stuff. All of us went through it. A lot of people got kicked out or fired after they went through that process, which to me, you know, I passed, so I stayed on. So I figured that all the people that had passed stayed on. They were on the up and up. You know, but people can be corrupted like from one day to another, right? So we were careful about everything, but I felt a bit better that everybody was going through it. Administration ends, another administration comes in, and a landmark case declares everybody that was fired based on the polygraph exam or the confidence exams as unconstitutional. Then all of a sudden you have 6 years worth of people that were kicked out of the job coming back into the job, their wages being paid forward. And you had people that were suspected of Sinaloa cartel participation in the office now, back at the office. So, it got really bad. And basically brought into the office all the work that I was doing ended. I got an offer to work for a single side of it, basically. They told us, hey, remember you're working here? Yeah. Well, we're going to work against these guys over here only. And we want you to come in and, okay, let me think about it. Basically, we want us to work against one side, which means you want us to work for this side.
Yeah.
I resigned that day. And there was just no getting out of it or squirming out of it or going somewhere else. I didn't have all the people that I knew within high-level government were gone because the administration changed. All the people that I knew in the leadership in the office were moved around, and I just had no choice. So I went outside, got my resignation printed out, signed it, handed everything in a duffel bag, handed in my MP5, my gun, my badge, everything, radio. Got myself into a car, called some of my friends, my American friends. Actually, two of them went down there, kind of helped me out to get out of there. Marines, God bless the United States Marine Corps. And they helped me cross the border. And, family in tow by this point, which was, that was probably the hardest part. I had choices in the U.S. that I didn't have in Mexico.
Yeah.
It wasn't a choice that I took lightly, and it wasn't something that I wanted to do at that point, but I didn't have a choice down there at that point. Most of my friends didn't have that choice. And a lot of them actually, got out of the job and sought employment elsewhere.
Yeah. Do you keep in touch with any of those guys?
No. It's one of those things where, like, it's not, doesn't serve anybody's interest to make contact with these people. I mean, there's people that I worked with for years. I slept on the same floors as them, ate out of the same tuna cans as them.
Yeah.
Went to some of their birthday parties of their kids, and now I see them rolling out there in some luxury vehicles, getting $12,000 paid to them every 2 weeks as a salary, and working for some of the most powerful drug organizations on the planet, with a lot of government training on their side, a lot of American government specialty training on their side, and just basically upping the game. We just went through the most lethal year to be a Mexican in the country's history, the most violent year in our history this past year. And this year is going to beat that year probably. And it's being fueled by people like me that went into that fight, got all these, all this experience, all these skills, and are basically tossed into the garbage.
Yeah.
As they would then flip to, the whole career path was just non-existent. And that's what's fueling some of this fight as well. Some of these people just, what else am I going to do, right?
Yeah.
None of them had the opportunity that I had, and I don't blame them. Realistically, I just can't blame them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of them are out there.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll kind of talk about the structure of some of these guys and some of, and go into that. There's a lot of people looking for land these days as we continue to lose our freedoms. So we're on our way to look at a piece of property out in the middle of nowhere, and this particular piece only sits on 1.5 acres, I believe, 1.5 acres. All right, Ed, we're back from the break, and I want to kind of go into some of the structure of the cartels, and then I got like a hodgepodge of questions that are just a bunch of random shit. But you kind of talked about how fast they bounce back after the political leaders changed with the different strategy, and just to kind of put that in perspective for the audience, I read something when I was it may have been in a documentary, I can't remember, but it was talking about a family that was running basically like just a small family cocaine operation out of Mexico. Sounded like maybe 5 to 10 family members, and within a few years that had grown into a cartel organization that was over 100,000 with over 100,000 members of that cartel. And so just to kind of put that in perspective for the audience on how fucking big that is, that Google employs 108,000 people. Yeah. So within a few years, they grew that cartel into basically an organization as fucking powerful as Google. And the only way they could have done that is by the demand. Which is one of the first things I want to ask is how much of that demand is coming to the United States versus Canada versus Europe? Are we the number one consumer?
Yeah, I mean, yes. So the U.S. market is what drives most of the growth that some of these organizations have. Most of it comes to the U.S. A lot of it actually goes to places like Europe. There's been a recent upsurge in nautical trips between Latin America into places like Africa that then get unloaded in Africa and then get sent over to Europe. Right? That's one of the routes that it's taken. Canada as well. I mean, it's a growing drug market. Canada is one of the fastest growing drug markets out there right now. So a lot of that is fueling some of these smaller organizations growing, right? Mm-hmm. Another thing that's fueling them is their ability to also make a living off their environment. Mexico itself is a giant drug market. That's one of the things that a lot of people don't talk about as well. Tijuana is an example of this. Most of the killings are happening between rival cartels in Tijuana, killing off the local sellers of each other's sides. So most of the people that die during the night in Tijuana is like 7 to 8 or something like that every night. They're in different sales points in Tijuana where they're selling there locally. So that also feeds their organizations. They also have money within legitimate businesses. From there's a few tequila companies out there that have been linked to people like El Chapo's family.
Okay.
So it's legitimate money growing out of some of these. I think George Clooney sold his tequila company for about $1 billion or something like that. So you can imagine some of the money being made legally through some of their influences and some of the properties they can buy with some of the money that's generated from trafficking drugs into the U.S.
They sound pretty diversified, and I want to get into that in a minute, but you were talking about a lot of the violence in Tijuana is cartel on cartel, and the way I just took what you said is they're killing each other's lowest level guys. The street,
their most exposed level, which is their sales points, local sales points.
So how are they identifying each guy? Like
you follow the user.
You follow the user?
Yeah. And they're pretty easy to spot.
Mm-hmm.
You follow the user, and there's I'm so sorry about the French that I keep saying. Those bad words, but they're the words that we used to use when we worked. If you want to find somebody, find where they sleep, work, and fuck. Mm-hmm. When I say fuck, I mean where they partake in their vices. So like even we would follow the people that were, we recognize as users. We'd follow them around, and we'd immediately recognize sales points. So. Traditionally, most of the sales points in Tijuana specifically, they're all kind of on the outskirts of the city, like in the eastern part of the city, or some of the older parts of the city that are on the hillsides. Tijuana has a river going through it, so that's where most of the downtown, more developed parts are. So people want to buy, they go into the hillsides and then come back.
Okay.
So that's where most of the killing is happening. Mostly, again, sales points. And they identify each other because, and grab a junkie off the street. Where are you buying it? Over there. That's not one of our guys.
Okay. I guess what I was kind of going towards is, do they have any specific markings for different cartels?
No. They've become very good at not doing that. From tattoos, there used to be a big culture with Mexican criminal organizations having tattoos or markings of some kind. We would find people that had like spots where they mechanically or chemically remove tattoos, and it was like a standing order within some of the organizations.
Yeah.
So they're very good at that and detaching themselves from some of these sales points.
Okay.
So the high level distributors will give the loads that are going to be sold in different parts of the city to somebody else that is unattached to the distributor. It's like a waypoint. So they'll give them that and they'll go and hand it over, and somebody else will get the money. So they attach those 2 points. All communication goes through paper notes and or cell phones that get changed on a daily basis, that type of stuff.
Okay.
So, but they're very good bookkeepers. I mean, they're like if you miss 20 pesos out of your cut over a day, you're gonna get a visit by somebody. So
okay. It just seems like killing each other off, cartel versus cartel, the turf war, whatever it is that's going on, and why they're trying to eliminate each other. We just said, one organization grew to 100,000 person strong cartel within a few years, and when an organization's that fucking big, there's no way. I feel like there's no way you could possibly know who's on your side, who's selling drugs for Cartel X, and who's selling drugs for Cartel Y.
So they divide themselves up into cells, basically. So an example of this was happening in Tijuana back in 2008. They had a Sinaloa cartel had a cell in Tijuana. And they had a lieutenant that was in charge of the cell that reported directly back to Sinaloa, to the head of the Sinaloa cartel, which was not El Chapo, by the way, as a lot of your U.S. media and a lot of Mexican media wants to make him out as the head of the Sinaloa cartel. El Chapo Guzman was probably number 3 or number 4 in the whole scale of things. He was not the head of the Sinaloa cartel.
No shit.
But that we'll talk about that later if you want. But what they usually do is they send out un lugarteniente, or like a lieutenant, to run a cell. He gets fed money, he gets fed guns, and he gets fed instructions. His task is to secure drug routes, to attack any sort of rival enemies or people that are going to want to gain control over any sort of illicit or illegal activity. This includes human trafficking. This includes abduction for ransom. This includes stolen vehicle trafficking from the U.S. into Mexico, or even in Mexico when they steal some of the newer vehicles and traffic in some of the cars themselves, or they clone the serial numbers and send the cars all the way down to southern Mexico and actually come up with different paperwork for them. So that their whole purpose is to report directly back to the head of the cartel. To control distribution, to control all these illicit activities, and to tax people, right? They have several arms within that cell structure. The enforcement arm, sicarios, the guys that go out and kill people, the guys that go out and intimidate people, the guys that go out and eliminate the competition. They have whole cells of people that just every night they go out there hunting rival distribution networks or rival cartel guys. That's their whole deal, right? The reason why these sicarios are hard to get is that they drive around and roam around without any guns. They find somebody that they want to get after, and there's 2 ladies, old women, probably in their late 60s, drive up to them and hand over the guns that they use. They use them, and they get handed back to these old ladies, and these old ladies are inconspicuously just moving about the city with a trove of guns in their cars. Or they just dump them. right? So that's the enforcement arm of it. And then there's the distribution and security arm of it. They distribute the drugs. They take care of distribution or movement of loads of drugs going into the U.S. and or money coming down from the U.S. Or recently, there's been an uptake in precious metals being trafficked from the U.S. into Mexico as a way of payment instead of money. So like gold, basically. So there's a whole administrative distribution part of it where they move money to the U.S., money from the U.S. and guns from the U.S. and drugs up into the U.S. So there's a whole thing there. Then there's the administration side of it. You know, people have to keep tabs over numbers. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of numbers. There's a lot of people going around and figuring out what percentages of money are being taken in at certain times of the year, so they can ask questions at the second time of the year. So like when the COVID thing hit, sales dropped. So that kind of freaked some of these cartels up, and then they started figuring ways of getting around some of the lockdown measures by actually going door to door and distributing their product.
No shit.
So they developed this drug Uber, basically, right, in some parts of the country. So you have your enforcement or security arm. You have your distribution arm and you have your administrative arm, and then you have this at the center of all this. There's the figure of a lugarteniente or a cartel leadership. He usually has other underlings that also perform leadership tasks, and sometimes these underlings don't know each other or don't have any attachment to each other. So it's like a cell within a cell. Okay. So we would get somebody that was in charge of a group of 40 sicarios, and all he had was a different phone that would be handed to him so he could get instructions.
How are they broken up? Are they broken up by region?
Yeah. So like Tijuana, when I was active, Tijuana was divided up into 4 pieces. There was playas near the beach. There was a El Centro, or the old federal Colonia, which is like that's one of the richest drug markets. That's where the Americans walk in to buy some of their drugs and then move back to the U.S. The east side of the city, where a lot of the trafficking from within Mexico, like large drug loads, would be stored there and then would get put into vehicles, put on people, put into tunnels, all that stuff. That's kind of the main part of the activity there. And some places like this, the older colonies and places like La Mesa, Las Huertas, all these other parts where they would have their houses, where they would party, where they would hide. So you'd have these divisions, and each of these divisions had their own kind of like head guy that would know everything going on there. He would have the police on their payroll. He would have the investigative police on their payroll. He would have people he would know in the media that would cover up things for them. He would pay for certain election processes of the local representatives. So again, they were more connected than the phone company there. You know, they had all these connections everywhere. Yeah. So that's how they worked.
Backing up real quick.
Sure.
You were saying lieutenants are kind of in charge. So a lieutenant of a cartel in a region would be in charge of multiple streams of revenue, which is mainly drugs and then sex trafficking, car theft, whatever else. Then they are also in charge of the sicarios. They're also in charge of the trafficking routes. So this almost kind of sounds like maybe a corporate or maybe even a franchise model.
Yeah.
Where each lieutenant owns, or maybe doesn't own, but is in charge of his business model.
Yeah.
And then they have the exact same business model all over fucking Mexico.
Yeah.
Does that include is it run the same way in the United States?
Yes. Yes. So more so than a corporation, it kind of reminds you of some sort of underground government. Like, because they not only provide money sometimes for things like schools and people's immigration processes or lawyers, or they also police some of the communities. So there's some communities that, you know, something gets stolen, they don't call the cops, they call the cartels. That's why you see a lot of these videos popping up online, cartel guys giving the board against on some of these guys. They lower their pants and just go to town on them, and that's corporal punishment provided by a quasi narco government that is working at parallel with the government.
Okay.
So in that way, I think that's more equated to how they act. Of course, they're a business, and just like the government taxes, they tax as well. So sometimes they tax certain companies for protection. So there's a bunch of mining operations going on along the northern border in Mexico that they're all taxed by cartels depending on where they are, so they can continue operating. On the U.S. side, you get some of the same structure, not as overt. Again, they can't be as overt up here because you still have a working government, and you still have a police force, you still have a federal police force that isn't anywhere near as corrupted as other parts of the world, specifically in Mexico. So they work with fear here. But in the same way, they have a single lieutenant or cartel head that runs the operation very much like they did down there, with an armed branch or an enforcement branch or security branch that goes off and does things for them, to a distribution branch that takes care of money loads going down to Mexico, maybe a buying arm or an administrative arm that just gathers things like ammo or guns or whatever the people back home want. Sometimes clothing, sometimes weird things like clothing, or the latest and greatest Jordan shoes will get smuggled right where in the drug tunnels where the drugs come into the U.S. Some of those luxury goods might get smuggled back into Mexico because somebody sent a shopping list over, right? But they act differently here in the U.S. The distribution arms in the U.S. are usually done through other third parties. Not in Mexico, that's not the case. So distribution down there is done by locals. They gather people that work for them as distributors. Up here in the U.S., you see a lot of motorcycle gangs being utilized by cartels as distribution, or local gangs. Chicago is a good example of this. The Sinaloa cartel runs a lot of their distribution with some of the local black gangs in places like Chicago. So they use them by proxy because they're aware that obviously I'm not going to get a Mexican guy that's loyal to my cartel to distribute this drug in this community where he doesn't look or talk like the people there.
Yeah.
So they're smart about that. So they go through secondary people like that here in the U.S. That's kind of what changes in how they operate here.
So these guys, they're creating their own. They have created their own fucking government, essentially.
Yeah.
And they're supporting their local communities, and they are
on both sides of the border.
They're acting as law enforcement in Mexico. And so these guys are probably fucking chomping at the bit right now for the police to be defunded right here in the U.S. because they're going to take a major fucking role in that.
I know for a fact that most of the places where police presence is lower or basically a non-existent because of the current situation. I know for a fact that they've taken all the advantages to move product, to move guns, to move and do and clear out whatever they need to do in this time of the great law enforcement pause that the country's going through.
So they're being extremely fucking proactive with that.
So think about this. The largest, fastest growing cartel in Mexico was the new generation cartel, grew exponentially in influence and power, not just in Mexico, but in the U.S. during the COVID epidemic. Sinaloa cartel was struggling to get fentanyl for their product. They actually had to smuggle it from American ports down to Mexico, which a load was captured in Tijuana, to feed their apparatus. The reason why that happened is because the new generation cartel controls the Pacific side ports in Mexico, in places like Colima, right? So their distribution was clear and easy. China was sending their stuff, they were getting their product, and they were growing exponentially. So the pause only affected, law enforcement in Mexico was also kind of paused a bit. But they grew exponentially with the shutdown. Also, the Sinaloa cartel's capacity to meet demand lowered. Their capacity was uninterrupted, and they've been working on growing on their influence on the U.S. side for years. There was a recent operation where they nabbed about 86 of them or something like that by the DEA, including one of the head leader of the new generation cartels kids, right? So they've been growing underground here in the U.S. for years, and that hit they had was nothing.
Didn't even put a dent in it.
They're growing, and again, the fentanyl, heroin drug market now, bogus fake pain pills coming out of China, also coming into the U.S. Right.
I wanted to get into this, but fuck it, we'll do it now. China. When I was doing my research, it sounds like China's taken a major interest in the cartels in Mexico, and I've operated around China overseas several times, and those motherfuckers are just as ruthless, if not more, than some of the cartels. And they also play by no rules. Why is the interest in China, or why is China's interest in Mexico becoming so strong?
It's your Achilles heel as a country. It's your number 2 largest consumer of American products in the world. It's a very destable place that's getting destabilized even more. So this whole weird thought process that Americans have that the cartels are getting their fentanyl from China, from some sort of criminal element within China. Like, let's be clear. Nothing comes out of China, nothing happens in China without Chinese state being involved or knowing about it. This is a place where Big Brother is the real thing, right? Everybody's monitored. You saw it during the COVID shutdown. You saw it with the way they're handling the Uyghur population. So nothing coming out of China is coming out of China without them knowing so. So all that fentanyl being brought out of China into Mexico, that's being put into heroin, or some of these fentanyl fabrication sites that are being found in Mexico now with clear instruction by Chinese laboratory specialists. That's not a private entity. That's not the triads, or that's not a criminal activity. That's a Chinese state-sponsored activity. It's clear as day to anybody that kind of looks into this.
Yeah.
Right? One thing is regional destabilization. That usually happens when they want something from that country. So one thing happened politically within the U.S. and Mexico relationship, the Trump phenomenon, right? Trump came into office and said, "We're going to take a lot of our business out of Mexico. I'm going to bring it back." That was one of the things that he said that was going to happen, and did happen. A lot of businesses took their plants, and American business took their plants and companies out of Mexico. Instead of it affecting Mexico in a negative way, Chinese plants and Chinese companies replanted them immediately.
No shit.
So something happened in that interval where somebody on this side figured out that's probably a mistake, and things started balancing out. Interesting thing to note, we currently have in Mexico a leftist president that is open Chavista, that's open Maduro supporter, but somehow there's an open and really friendly relationship with the U.S. when it comes to the president and Trump and the president down there. I think Trump is very much aware of the danger that Mexico is in with the Chinese influence and the foreign influence within the country. Another factor that doesn't get talked a lot about is that Mexico has probably the largest mineable deposits of lithium right on the border. And China, through a Canadian company, actually won the rights to mine that a few years back, and their mining rights got canceled. And I'm not, going to go into Alex Jones territory, right? But I mean, the conspiracy part of it, right where that mining discovery was made, that's where the Mormon massacre happened. So it's a key place, and things happen there. Yeah. It's a very strange kind of environment for all the influences and all the pushing and pulling that's happening in that area. Some of the people that I've talked to in the security field, some of the people that I've talked to in the security field outside of the friendly neighbors of the U.S., like in Mexico, there's a lot of Cuban intelligence service operations going on all over the place, just like places like Venezuela. You can see a clear partnership and influence with China there, right? It's in their best interest to gain ownership and control over a place like Mexico, which is currently going through a lot of bad stuff, a lot of crime, a lot of destabilization. There's whole swaths of Mexico that are controlled by cartels. The new generation cartel, I think, in a way, is a product of that outside influence. It's the only cartel that grew during the COVID epidemic shutdown. That tells me that there's some sort of outside influence from China there.
Are you seeing a lot of Chinese coming into Mexico and kind of setting up shop?
The largest, one of the largest cash seizures was done on a guy, Jen Lee Segon, a Chinese Mexican national, somewhere in the vicinity of $100 million cash found at his house. He was trafficking fentanyl legally and meth precursors into the country under some sort of paperwork legality. So there's some shady stuff going on there.
How long has this shit been going on with China?
As soon as the U.S. got a taste for meth, I think that's probably the start of it.
When was that? 10 years ago?
Probably a bit more further back than probably 15 years ago. 15 years. Yeah, and then this has just been exponentially growing.
Is it weird? How do I phrase this? Are you seeing more and more Chinese people? Is it becoming like a common thing to see?
One of the largest communities of Chinese nationals are growing all along the border.
Wow.
Right. So, I mean, this is not something. It's not something in the realm of conspiracy.
Yeah.
Like if you can, this is clearly happening out in the open in a lot of regards. And people can research this and see it for themselves. To deny that the largest cartel in Mexico grew during the COVID epidemic because they clearly had a supply chain from China is to deny what's right in front of your face. To deny that more and more Norinco-made military-grade stuff is popping up in print places in Mexico is also missing something that's in front of your face. And to deny that... So how many people die from fentanyl-related issues here in the U.S.?
Tons.
If you want to confront a military, the U.S. is a superior military force.
Mm-hmm.
How can you corrode that?
It makes perfect sense.
Generational.
And the thing with China is they're fucking extremely effective.
No wait.
At whatever they do.
No wait. They have a lifetime president.
Yeah. One being they don't fucking play by rules either.
Yeah.
And, China will come in and they'll open a whorehouse immediately to start gathering intelligence because people are going to go to the fucking whorehouse. They're going to fuck a Chinese hooker. The hooker's going to milk them for information. The information gets to where it needs to go. And it happens like that. It's
Cuban intelligence services that are operating all over Central America and specifically Venezuela. That's how they act, right? They're people are playing checkers with these guys that are playing chess, and they play the long game. That's something I think the U.S. doesn't get. Example: China has a lifetime president.
Yeah.
Cuba has a lifetime regime with the Castros. They're playing a really long game against a country that has elections, and politics change every 4-8 years.
Yeah.
And they see the clear line and divide. So I mean, there's blood in the water, and I think they can smell that.
Everybody's taking advantage of it.
Yeah, and I got, again, foreign eyes. I'm new here. I'm trying to earn my way into becoming an American, but I still have that outside perspective. People getting offended by the whole Chinese virus wording or China isn't the villain and as a country, and people kind of coming into the defense of that. People within the MVA not wanting to speak up about China because the Chinese are the best, one of their best clients as far as buying some of the rights to watching some of these NBA games. Disney. I mean, you can't say anything wrong. But how surreal is it that you can't speak critically about China if you work for the NBA? I mean, that is outside of outside of the realm of what I thought being an American was.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know. It's a weird time, but I think that's they're clearly waging some sort of long-term war campaign against the U.S. and Mexico is being utilized as a tool for that.
Yeah. Interesting. With the fentanyl, going back to that, what are they putting the fentanyl in?
Heroin, and also now they're building or making fake pain medication. They're kind of basing it off some of the pill designs and very badly made. Seen some pretty good ones coming out of Mexico in the past few years. Back when it was active, they were crudely made, but somebody hands you some pain medication in a dark room somewhere, you take it. You don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
So usually some of the heroin that's being grown in the hillsides out there, weird phenomenon happened. California legalized marijuana, Colorado. A lot of places are kind of following suit in the U.S. So the demand for marijuana went down. It's not over, though. They still traffic marijuana into the U.S., which is pretty surprising. But a lot of the hillsides that were covered with weed back then are now covered in poppy fields.
Mm.
But the thing is that some of these hillsides have been stuff has been growing in those hillsides for decades. So the heroin yield and the strength of the heroin isn't anywhere as near some place like Afghanistan or some of the stuff that comes out of Asia. It's actually very low quality and strength. So the cartel said, just put fentanyl in it to give it a kick.
It just seems kind of counterproductive because heroin's already so fucking addictive, you know, and then when you do hear of, people overdosing on heroin, a lot of the times, it comes out that it was laced with fentanyl.
Yeah.
So it seems I'm sure there's a reason for it, but in my mind, I'm like, well, why would you do that? Because you're killing the fucking consumer, which seems to be bad for business.
Well, they shifted to methamphetamines for a while, like as their main thing, and methamphetamines and cocaine. But then they realized how much of a grassroots effort there was in the U.S. to make your own. And they didn't like that.
Yeah.
So they saw this perfect storm and window to just dedicate themselves to heroin, fentanyl, put them together. And a bunch of people that were on opiates already in the U.S., a lot of the crackdown that went on in the U.S. against prescription opiates that were left without a product.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect storm for the cartels to kind of fill that void.
Do you think this is going to create any problems with Afghanistan and Mexico now that they're getting into the opiate trade? Because that's the number one.
Well, I've been,
when it comes to Taliban, Al Qaeda, that's ISIS.
I've been researching anything. So just to be, clear and open about it. I have friends all over Mexico. A lot of them people that I used to work with, and they're still active within law enforcement in Mexico. Some of the people that I've trained, like I still go down there and train members of law enforcement and some of the security forces. So anything that's weird gets sent to me, like horrible videos to Farsi translation books found in the desert somewhere. So I've always been on the lookout for anything Middle Eastern in Mexico.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, it's an open order within most of the major cartels that run operations along the border to not touch anything related to Islamic extremism or Islamic anything.
Why is that?
Because they don't want to. They're afraid of the word, the designation.
Mm.
They're afraid of the terrorist designation. That's something that puts fear in them.
Okay.
That's something we thought I thought it was coming after that family was murdered on the border. And sorry for saying Mormon massacre, American massacre. They were American nationals.
Yeah.
And they also had Mexican citizenship. I don't care if they prayed to the moon. They were American, and also they were women and children.
Yeah.
I thought that was coming. I heard the designation. I heard the pressure coming on, and I said, "That's. I think that's going to change things." But it didn't. It was walked back. Again, regional stability. I'm sure there's a good reason for that, but they're afraid of it, so they don't want to touch anything related to extremism. I mean, there's probably a few cases of them kind of slipping through the cracks, or some smaller cartels helping out some sort of Muslim group or something like that. But it's mostly like a touchy subject with them. Anything that smells of it, they won't touch it, or they will take care of it themselves. It's not good for their business, basically. So I don't see that becoming a problem. But who knows? This whole people are moving more freely in and out of Mexico now. Again, the government is losing a grip on its ports of entry. It's declining in some places. We saw this with the Culiacanazo incident, where the government forces captured one of El Chapo's kids and were basically beaten by the whole of the Sinaloa cartel.
Yeah.
So, who knows? I mean, it could be something on the horizon.
It'll be interesting. I mean, they're definitely dipping into their products or into their profits by now. And the funny thing about them is they only use that to fund their intention.
Yeah.
And we know their intentions. And if they can't, if that takes away from the money that they're dumping into their intentions, then, I mean, fuck, man.
It could be something we'll see it could be something on the horizon.
Yeah.
Again, I think Mexico is getting worse. There's no ifs, ands, or about it. And people blame the COVID epidemic as far as the economic downturn that's going through. I mean, the incompetence and the death spike and the violence in Mexico flared up way before that.
Yeah.
And again, it's a clear proxy war happening in Mexico between two major forces, American interests and Chinese, probably Chinese sponsored state interests in Mexico.
Roughly how many different cartels are down there?
I mean, it's different numbers. I mean,
hundreds,
probably somewhere in the hundreds. 5 of us can form a cartel. Then we can be named like a cartel and be named an organized crime group and work in a town. And we're a cartel that just dedicates themselves to this town. So there's a lot of them small ones. But mostly all the small ones by proxy work for another bigger cartel. So yeah, there's a lot of small ones that just hold control over certain parts of the country.
How many main cartels are there?
I'd say there's 2 major ones that people need to keep an eye on and worry about. The New Generation Cartel, Cartel de Jalisco de Nueva Generación, a cartel that originally was formed as an armed enforcement elite wing to fight the Zeta cartel when it was still active, when it was still the major threat for the Sinaloa cartel. So the Sinaloa cartel basically made this Mata Zetas group to fight against the Zetas, and they turned into their own thing. They turned into a cartel. They figured out like, what? Well, we can be cartel ourselves. Yeah, okay. Let's gain control. They gain strategic control of places like Guadalajara, places like Colima, where the major ports are. So they basically became the owners of the door for some of the precursors. And this was at the start of the shift from cocaine to heroin, fentanyl, precursors for meth. So they got it at the right time to gain control of that. They've been growing exponentially, and it's not a cartel like the Sinaloa cartel that flaunts their lavish lifestyles and gold guns and fast cars. They're very militaristic. They're very low key in some ways.
They've smartened up.
Yeah, and they recruit. They're always recruiting, from military to police. They have legitimate training camps out there. So we used to see these ISIS Al Qaeda training videos with the monkey bars. that's happening now in Mexico. And then there's actually like camps with these guys go out and train. There's rumors of American American military guys advising them. It's the only cartel in Mexico it's one of the only cartels in Mexico that has dominance over the skies, over their territories. So there's places in Guadalajara where helicopters don't fly because they're afraid to get knocked down. They've already knocked down a few. So they're incredible force to kind of face.
Yeah.
They recently got a crackdown from the government going after them directly, which leads a lot of people to think that the federal government in Mexico has a deal with Sinaloa cartel. So there's some sort of effort being done against just the new generation cartel because they see them as a threat. But they're growing. There's no stopping their growth. And you can see that a lot of that growth is directly related to their ability to get stuff from the Pacific side of the ocean. Right? That's one of the main reasons why it's growing.
Wow. You talk in depth several times about the Zeta cartel. And for those of you that don't know who the Zeta cartel is, they were started by Mexican special operations guys, correct?
Yeah. Special forces is a lot of groups right now within the military claim that title.
Mm-hmm.
Back when they were when the Zetas came about, that's a generation of people that had the GAFE title, Grupo Aeromóvil de Fuerzas Especiales, basically an air mobile special forces group. Different breed of people. I actually had and still have people that I know that I work with every now and then that didn't go the Zeta route and remained on. Different breed of guys, mostly college degrees, university degrees. Some of them have master's degrees. All of them have language skills. That's how you know these guys are special. School of the Americas trained. A lot of them have pictures in Fort Bragg and some crazy places and received some crazy jungle warfare training in Colombia and other places in South America. So these guys were monsters, basically. And they were on government salaries, which are pretty shitty.
Yeah.
Eventually, the Gulf Cartel, headed at that time by OCL Cárdenas Guillén, decided it would be an interesting thing to hire on some of these guys as bodyguards. So a former member of that group that worked for his cartel said, I'll help you recruit them. He went down there, made the offer with money. All of them looked at each other and said, yeah, we're in. Emptied out the armory, filled their trucks, left on patrol, never came back. So all of a sudden you saw this high-level, sophisticated, highly trained SF group working for one of the major cartels in Mexico.
And then they split off and became their own.
And then again, just like the Matazetas from the Sinaloa cartel, they figured out, hey, we're doing all the work. We can be our own cartel. So they split off.
They were labeled as being some of the most ruthless guys out there.
I think they're being beat by the new generation cartel now.
Really?
Yeah, but they were ruthless. They were very cold, calculated. And this comes from secondhand stories and some of the stories that I've heard from some of the people that belong to that unit. They would have this thing where during training they would get a dog that they would take care of for a few weeks. They would sleep with it and feed it and all this type of stuff, name it, and then they would have to kill it and eat it after a time with random weaponry, crowbar, rock. So and if you didn't do it, you would get kicked out. So that's the type of individual that they were breeding, right? They were desensitizing these guys. And then all of a sudden, imagine you're this elite warfighter with all this training and all this oversight and all this leadership behind you and rules. All of a sudden, no rules.
Yeah.
You're your own guy. You guys are just what are the local cops going to do with their revolvers?
It enables the operator to reach maximum potential.
Yeah, so they were unchained. One of the things that I don't hear talked about much, but during a time, the Zetas allied themselves with the Tijuana cartel to fight against Sinaloa. Zetas and Sinaloa enemies, long enemies. And there was a prison break in Tijuana that was A-team level. Like the A-team did it. You know, there's like, I was working back then. I didn't get to witness it, but I got there to see the after effect. Tijuana prison. Ever seen the movie Get the Gringo by Mel Gibson? That's based on that prison. It's a very old prison. Basically, the city grew around it. It's still active. It's been trying to get deactivated for years, but they haven't been able to replace it completely. A group of people dressed in medical garb and a few ambulances came to do a weekly transport of some of the members into their dialysis. It's like there was a weekly thing that happened at that prison. So everybody thought it was normal. And all of a sudden, precise sniper fire at the guard towers took them out. Explosives were used, small frame charges and paper frame charges were used on some of the doors. Angle grinders and highly coordinated escape from the inside and the outside. Full body armor in some of these guys. You know, they managed to take out some high-level cartel guys that were inside in a very coordinated thing. It shocked everybody how coordinated it was. Long-standing rumor is it was Zeta guys. Interesting little bit of information there. All of them were doing port down. All of them were port down, coordinated port down guys. All of them were using M4 specific rifles. All of them had exactly the same kit in the same place on their stuff.
So we know where they came from.
As far as what's being reported. Another small element that you can tell these guys knew what they were doing. They had leg holsters, some of them. High.
Oh, shit.
High leg holsters. You know, high.
Yeah, not drop leg.
Not the drop leg holster like all the way down to the knee when somebody knows what they're doing. All of them had that high leg holster, just clearing the armor on some of them. And they were wearing the lab coats to hide some of that stuff, and all of a sudden they started working. Zetas.
That's fucking scary. You know, I mean, do you think that would have been fixed if their pay would have been better?
I don't know. In Mexico, everybody has a price.
Because, I mean, I think it's the same in the U.S., you know? I mean, guys aren't, there are rumors of guys going down and doing shit like that in Latin America. But, you know, I mean, we saw a massive influx into the contracting world from the U.S. military. I mean, you can work U.S. military and kick the doors in, and that's what the guys want to do. They want to fucking kick doors in, and they want to fucking kill bad guys, and they want to feel that rush. And especially towards the beginning of the war, you could do that exact same fucking job, not necessarily with all the same caliber of people, but you could jump over on some of these contracts and you could make an entire year's worth of salary in one fucking month on certain contracts as you could in an entire year at a unit.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's a price there too. And the only way they tried to combat that was up the reenlistment bonuses. And so when I got out, there were E7 and above, I think, was getting $150,000 reenlistment bonus, but still, even that doesn't fucking compare to the money.
No.
You know?
Salaries that I've heard from the elite guys, $12,000 every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Plus they get to keep whatever they find.
Oh.
So that's, I mean.
Yeah, a little extra incentive.
Also, Americans going down there, like I've heard rumors from specialty people going down and training people in Mexico. You see elements of that in everybody says, Ed, they laugh at the fact that every now and then they find these 50 cals or these long range platforms out there without any glass on them, not any sights. And they're like, I mean, nobody was using that, right? But one of the first things that gets repurposed by the military are the sights.
Yeah.
EOTech.
Yeah.
ACOG. Right, so you get presented a naked rifle. One of the things we saw in some long range, shooting sites. They were training themselves up down there. I would see small elements of training and or some sort of specialty. Screws being painted on there so they know where they were. Dialed in scopes, German glass, spotter scopes found in conjunction with the long range shooting scopes.
So they have the dope on their gun. The dope is the calculations for different
dope cards, written dope cards. Well, the first time I found one, I didn't know what it was. I'd send it to a Marisoc friend of mine, and so does this make sense to you? Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Where'd you find that? Like, oh shit, that's not cool.
Fuck.
Duct tape. One of the things that I saw once, duct taped to a rifle. So duct tape next to a rifle with the rounds on the duct tape.
Yep.
Which is
that's a sniper.
It's a very small detail that people might not know about that openly, but it's a thing I saw. I was like, that's interesting. And a lot of these things I would share with people that I would train with later on, or would train us, or I formed a relationship with a lot of the advisors that would come in. I had good English, so I could form a rapport, and I would share some of these things with some people up here, and they would like freak out with some of the details that I was seeing. Right now, what we're seeing is military grade night vision, like the good stuff, the $24,000, $30,000 stuff being found randomly in places down there. So that's what they're doing now. CNC machines making lowers, suppressors, high quality suppressors being made somewhere, cranked out somewhere down there by some people, and basically ripping off some of the major companies in the US designs and remaking them down there, right? So that's scary stuff.
So they're getting the best training in the world.
Well, I think experience is a bitch of a teacher, but she will never lie to you. When you pair that with having a neighbor that has some of the best warfighters, the best warfighters in the world, that also get a lot of experience.
Yeah.
There's some sort of cross-pollination there that happens, and you get some scary stuff.
Yeah,
weaponized drones. We're seeing a lot more of those. So basically, civilian grade weaponized drones with basically flying claymores, flying around, homemade claymores. We're seeing a lot of those now. The way they're utilizing drones themselves before an event, a criminal event. So like they're getting some of their tactics from somewhere. It's pretty interesting seeing some of those details and how they're advancing. Meanwhile, on the government side, they're patrolling in uniform, in marked vehicles, in the same way they have been for the past almost 25 years. Nothing's changed. Just change the uniform, change the logo, but the same thing is happening. They're operating the same way. There's no advance there.
So going back a little bit, you were saying that it went kind of from marijuana to cocaine to meth to heroin laced with fentanyl.
Yeah, cocaine's always been one of the biggest. Cocaine and marijuana, right? Even poppies as well. But yeah, the fentanyl and heroin put together to make a solid product to fill the void within the basically the prescription opiate epidemic that you guys went through, and there was a crackdown on that end. So all of a sudden you found this giant market where people wanted that product, so they filled that void. But it's not just that. So the cartels just don't dedicate themselves to moving drugs around. They also, their local markets make them money. Protection rackets. Again, one of their biggest money makers outside of drugs is trafficking, human trafficking of all kinds, from kids to women to adults. We live in a country, the U.S. We live in a country where people are talking about reparations for slavery when there's actual slavery still in this country. California, very liberal, very, interesting politics there. Has a governor that has a winery that did not shut down during the COVID epidemic because their employees were essential.
Yeah.
They're essentially indentured slaves from Mexico that have to work. Right?
No shit.
So anybody experienced any salad shortages in the U.S. and California during the COVID epidemic? You wonder what that is?
What?
It's a bunch of Mexicans working in those fields illegally, but legally.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. That's a form of slavery. It's a clear-cut slavery right now happening in the U.S. And all these people are put into this country by criminal groups that make a shit ton of money off ransoming them to their families that are already settled here in the U.S. So let's say you want to come to the U.S. and I'm a coyote, I'm a smuggler. I report back to a cartel because I couldn't work if I didn't. You're going to pay me whatever money you can, $5,000 maybe, $8,000, depending on where you want to cross and what type of security you have as far as being able to live in being able to successfully cross. Or I can just go the weird way, and instead of crossing you physically through the border, to jumping the border, I can find a lookalike for you that already has paperwork, that lives legally in the U.S., rent his ID, rent his license, rent his car, drive it down to Mexico, pick you up, act like you're drunk and you can't speak and just passed out in the back seat, and share the legal, legit paperwork with the guy sitting there in immigration, let you pass, and then give those IDs back to the guy that rented them out to me.
Damn.
That's one way. Or I can fly you to Canada, and you just walk down.
Yeah.
Those are a few ways that people get through, but there's a cost to it. Sometimes people can't fill or pay that cost. Some of the people you see in Arizona, New Mexico, those places where you find them in the desert and the coyotes are crossing them, they can't afford that service. So they get, so I'll give you credit. You're going to have to work in certain field and certain farm for a certain amount of time, or your family that's already settled out there has to pay us basically a ransom for you. Arizona is the abduction capital of the U.S. Why do you think that is?
Yeah.
Why do they find people, in basically conditions of abduction?
Yeah.
There, human trafficking is a very real thing. It's a very horrible thing. Also, just indentured slavery is an actual thing that's happening right now in the United States while all these people are protesting for reparations or for problems that happened a while back.
Yeah.
Things are happening right now. You don't see anybody protesting Governor Newsom and his winery that's open during the COVID epidemic for private events. You don't see any of that. It's as a Mexican, I see these things, and I scratch my head where the attention goes and where the eyes go. It's one of their biggest moneymakers. People trafficking into the U.S. is something that feeds the cartel criminal organizations in the U.S., just like drugs. But it's one of those things that doesn't get talked about much.
When it comes to smuggling immigrants into the U.S., why does everybody want to come here? Is it because we're supposedly land of the free and they want to live the American dream, or is it because they want to get the fuck out of Mexico and they have no choice to survive but to come over here?
Both. And yes, when I'll include myself, we believe in the dream. We believe that this country provides an opportunity for people like me that have nothing. And I had nothing when I came here. All I had was, thank God, I had friends. All of them were military guys. NSW member, reservist, Dan Stanfield. He was one of the guys that gave me my first, gave me a lot of help and opportunities to be in the U.S. A bunch of Marines. Again, for some reason, I'm surrounded by them, and I thank God for that. But I had nothing, Now I'm sitting here with you, and I have an audience, and I go around the country training people, and I get to make a living off that, and I support my daughter in that way. I could not have what I have here back there. And if I would have to stay back there, I would be dead right now, right? The vision or the dream of what it is to be an American and what it is to live in the United States is something very real and tangible to people in Mexico. So there's an element of believing in that, the land of opportunity, the land of the free, and also, you know, and when I personally say the land of the brave, it's that bravery comes with safety. I can express something like all the things that I'm saying in this interview that would get me shot in the face.
Yeah,
where I'm from. I could say all these things openly and share it with an audience. I can do that where I'm from. So that's a very true thing. And again, completely from an outside's perspective, it blows my mind that I can do this here. But a lot of them are fleeing from Mexico because of the horrid conditions that are in some places. Not all Mexico is shithole, as the people up here like to say. There's some places that are amazing. Some places that do have a quality of life that is superior to places that I've been here in the U.S. You know, like I went to Detroit, you know, a few months back, and that was pretty shocking. As somebody from the third world, and I'm from TJ, and I said, "Wow, man, this is rough, right?"
Yeah.
I know not the whole of the U.S. is Detroit, but some parts are, right? So I don't judge the whole country for what I see there. The problem is that Mexico does have a rampant problem with this type of stuff, and it's growing, and it's in a lot of places. Traditionally, Guanajuato, the state of Guanajuato, was one of the safest parts of the country. I wanted to retire to Guanajuato when I was older, and now it's one of the most dangerous states in the country, with a rampant drug war going on there over control. So yeah, people moving up here, and I could see, again, I talk to people that are going through the process themselves legally. That's another thing. I went through the process legally, and it was not easy.
Yeah.
And it was long, hard on myself and my family. And I feel like I earned it. Some people don't go through that process, and they live better than me in some ways, right? So that's an interesting that's an interesting perspective as well. You know, I get called a lot of things like you know, race traitor and all these things, usually from second or third generation Mexican Americans. That's who usually gets where I get most of the hate from. None of them have actually gone through the process themselves.
Yeah.
So I speak from pure experience. There's definitely a promise. There's definitely an attractiveness to moving to the U.S. I would not want to be in any other country. I feel like this is probably the best place to be, and I want to keep it that way. Well,
I'm fucking proud to have you here, man. I really am, and like, I'm glad you made it out of there, and I'm glad you're here, and I fucking know Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Dan. So we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, Dan
we'll
and
have
Kelly.
To talk about Dan.
Dan and Kelly.
Offline. I don't know Kelly.
Yeah, they're pretty. They've been pretty helpful with my whole process.
That's awesome, man.
Again, patriots. Most of the people that have helped me out, contrary to popular belief, a fresh off the boat immigrant to this country, and all the help that I had was usually from patriots and usually from service members. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of what I did. Maybe it's because of some of the relationships I formed when I was working down there. But it's been rough, man. It's been rough, and it's hard. I'll say this again. The worst enemy of a Mexican is another Mexican. And I've experienced that here several times over with some of the people that are up here or have been up here for a few generations. There's something about there's something about us that we just don't, give each other a hand for some reason.
Doing my own research and kind of looking into how everything's run, it seems like a lot of the sayings and a lot of the way business is conducted through the Mexican drug cartels seems to be a model that they may have picked up from the Colombians from back in the 80s and 90s. Even the sayings you're using, I listened to, I think it was you talk about the cemeteries and how the cemeteries are split. And I mean, that's the exact same fucking thing. You have in Colombia, you have all the, the community politicians and all of chief of police buried on one side, and directly across the street is Pablo Escobar's fucking tomb. And it's fascinating to me to see like it kind of changed like that. And I heard you say that a lot of the cocaine was going actual like growing was going up to Mexico. And I know they also pushed a lot down to Bolivia and Peru as well. But with that being said, if the Colombians pushed the cocaine up to Mexico, which seems to be extremely fucking powerful, way more powerful than them, what are the relations like?
Right now, it's going the other way.
It's going the other way.
The Colombians would come and show Mexicans how to do their thing, like back in the 70s and the 80s and probably early 90s. Now it's the other way around. Now there's legit cartel influence in places like Colombia.
No
like
shit.
Directly at the source. Like, and you can see enforcement and ownership all the way down there. I'm not saying they're replacing all the local organizations, but there's clear influence going the other way. From origin points to all the way up. So some of the stuff that is being grown or taken outside of Colombia as far as growth, cocaine growth, is actually funded and supported by Mexican organizations because they see the potential to move production out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're looking for ways to expand and modernize. There's cartel influence in Northern Africa.
No shit's gone all the way over there, huh?
There's a cartel group a cartel cell that was captured somewhere in Australia or Indonesia or something. Indonesia, and they were trying to figure out a way to provide a source for some of the high level heroin coming out of that region back into Mexico and then up into the United States. So they're looking to expand. They're international basically. But what I see now is Mexico is taking the lead with all that when it comes to all that, from the origin and the production to the transfer to even now in the U.S. to the distribution side of it, that's pretty telling as far as their influence on this side. The Pablo Escobar that's the guy.
Yeah.
You can see you see him referenced. And you see some of the things he used to do down there being replicated in places like Mexico. Interesting little connection there. Pablo Escobar was a follower and a very devoted follower of the Santo Niño de Atocha. It's a saint. It's basically an image of a child like Jesus that was venerated in Spain during the Moorish invasion. He was basically the saint of the persecuted. So Pablo Escobar would venerate El Santo Niño de Atocha. When they caught El Chapo Guzman's kid in Sinaloa recently, that past year, and the whole mess happened where they beat the Mexican army, on his neck, on a scapular, was a Santo Niño de Atocha.
No shit.
Right? So overnight, that saint's stock rose. If you wanted to buy a scapular of El Santo Niño de Atocha in Mexico at that time, hard to find like that one. It's like the most sought after item. So it was a revelation that it worked. A miracle happened. This guy escaped federal custody. The whole of the Sinaloa cartel came in and just, defeated the army in a miraculous event.
So they fucking love him.
Yeah, that's Escobar iconography gets found in cartel houses and safe houses and places like that all the time. Memoirs, books, pictures, tattoos of Escobar. That he was the guy that they all modeled themselves after. Now we're making our own legend. Mexico's making their own legend, their own figures like Escobar, with people like El Señor de los Cielos, with some of the people that were involved in the whole Kiki Camarena situation. Some of them are still alive and are actually still active out there. So that kind of legend continues on in that way, and it's also being propagated by things like Netflix.
Yeah.
So another interesting thing you kind of think about is, Narcos, the original Narcos made Pablo Escobar even more known.
Yeah.
I was equated to the movie La Bamba. You remember the movie La Bamba?
I didn't see that.
La Bamba was basically based on this 1950s singer, Mexican-American singer, who died in a plane crash, right? Richie Valens. And every time I say Richie Valens or La Bamba, everybody remembers Lou Diamond Phillips. They don't remember actually Richie Valens. They remember the movie about the singer, not the singer. And in a lot of ways, people that might have not grown up during the whole thing with Pablo Escobar, or the whole situation around Pablo Escobar, never knew him. All they remember is the Netflix series, right? All they remember is the series Narcos. And it's in there, and it's in the youth, it's in the music, it's in the culture, it's in the narcocultura, which, again, it's one of those influential things. You want to talk about, hey, when you were a kid, you watched G.I. Joe cartoon and made you maybe some way convince you to join the military later on in life. No. Maybe you saw a movie about some sort of badass military operation or something, I don't know, that might have convinced you to go into that line of work. Well, now there's not a lot of that, but there's a lot of Narcos Mexico going on right now. Yeah. A lot of kids quoting some of the show, a lot of kids going into the culture, wearing the clothes, wearing some of the regalia. Hey, who's your hero? El Señor de los Cielos.
Fuck.
Who's your hero? Chapo Guzman.
Damn.
It's a different thing. You want to talk about propagating. Again, freedom of speech, entertainment, enjoy what you want. But let's say tomorrow, cartels are declared a terrorist organization. So Netflix would now be showing shows glorifying a terrorist network. Wouldn't that blow your mind? But it's a thing. It's an interesting influence and transference of Colombian Medellin cartel and how some of them operated back then, how Pablo Escobar turned into this figure, and now how that's moved into Mexico and that's turned into another different monster, bigger monster. Monster.
I mean, it's fucking scary, I mean, even the fact that they've adopted the model where they, give back to the community and make it seem like they're being generous when
hearts and minds.
I mean, essentially all they're doing is getting the populace hooked on the fucking tit, and they're getting free shit. They think they're generous. They fall in love. Life's fucking easy for them. And these guys can do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
And combine that with the fact that how well funded they are, and then you bring in the training factor and how effective they are. I mean, this fucking this is going to be impossible to stop.
Well, you talk about, and again, somebody very famous told me once, never read the comment section.
Yeah.
But I have to sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So every now and then I get these online operators laughing at some of these cartel guys without any sights on their rifles. Like you see this AR platforms, maybe a Draco little thing like that, and they laugh at it. Oh, like, you live in a gun-free part of America, actual free America. You get to shoot a lot of cool guns, invest in your guns and all that stuff, and you see a lot of people online that are influencers and shooting Instagram really fast and all this stuff on their guns. Most of those kids in those videos, cartel videos, without any sights on the rifles, are actually going to drop more people in their lifetime than most of these Instagram shooters.
Yeah. Because
they live in a live environment. You don't need a lot of precision when you just spray wildly into another group of people that you're fighting.
Yeah.
Ambushing. The bad guys pick the time and the place. The good guys, you have to prepare at all times for that reaction.
And you have to fucking fight with rules.
Exactly.
Against somebody that has no fucking rules.
He's going to get a lot more experience in his lifetime, probably.
Yeah.
I don't mean to glorify them. I don't mean to say that they're better, that they are something to be respected. But I think if you dehumanize the enemy, I think if you laugh at them or you discount them, you're dead already.
Or underestimate them.
I don't underestimate anybody.
Yeah.
I've seen 12-year-old sicarios with over 4 or 5 skulls on their, on their repertoire as far as the people they've killed.
12 years old?
12-year-old, yeah. 12-year-olds.
When it's a 12-year-old kid, is that a choice that 12-year-old makes? Or is it more like maybe the...
Hey, we can't get close to that guy. Your little brother, he's cool, right? Yeah, he's fine.
Okay.
He's just a product of his environment.
So this, I mean...
Child soldiers.
It reminds me of Africa.
Yeah, say child soldiers, you immediately think Africa, but you don't think...
Yeah.
It's right down there. It's like right across the border. Child soldiers.
Yeah.
Child sicarios.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also kids at night in Mexico sleeping in their beds, probably 8, 9, dreaming of growing up and being in the back of one of those trucks with an AK.
Man, that's bad news.
Or being the next El Chapo. They talk about the corrosion of the culture. Just like Black Lives Matter, defund the police, all these things happening up here. Nobody wants to grow up to be a cop anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody wants to grow up and be a doctor. They want to grow up to be El Chapo.
Yeah.
They want their next Netflix series. They want Sean Penn to fly down there and be on the cover of Rolling Stone. That's what they want. Again, imagine if tomorrow they get declared a terrorist organization. Now you have a picture of Sean Penn shaking hands with a terrorist.
Yeah.
Again, that perspective is all skewed.
When it comes to the sicarios or the assassins, and you mentioned how religious Mexico is as a country, with Catholicism and everything like that. Are these guys still religious? I mean, you talk about the desensitizing too, and so. But
the desensitization I shared, the Zetas, those are different. Those completely different animal, different breed of people, highly educated, trained, military. Those are more mechanical.
It's like us gone bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you want to see, what you could become if that's.
Yeah. But
you see certain elements of religion there, but not like you see in some of the sicarios that are kind of made. What I mean by made is every cartel has their own kind of internal narco culture going on in there. Some of them pray to different saints. Some of them pray to different forbidden saints. Santa Muerte, the figure of death, that basically imbues them with the power or the authority to, what? I know you're Catholic, but you're under the protection of me, the holy saint of death. So anything you do under my protection, God's not going to know about it. So you have a clear field to do what you need to do.
Holy shit!
All right. So that's the base of the faith when it comes to Santa Muerte. And Santa Muerte, like people think Santa Muerte is like a Catholic thing. It's older than any sort of Catholicism in Mexico. If you kind of look at it, Santa Muerte, this figure of a skeletal figure with a robe on it, that's what she turned into during the 80s and 90s. But she used to be a skeletal figure with supple breast and a skirt of snakes, 2 hands like that. She used to be Coatlicue, the mother goddess of the Aztecs. So if you think about it, the only surviving veneration of Aztec religion still in practice is Santa Muerte. And it's a practice that has faithful within police forces, within the military, within high-level politics, and the sicarios. That's a lot of them actually venerate her. When I first started working, a lot of the older guys that I work with prayed to Santa Muerte. They took me to a Santa Muerte shrine, and we offered offered her a bottle of Patron. I was like, "Hey, get a bottle," and I grabbed that cheap ass bottle, I said, no, you need to get her something that you would drink, or else it won't matter, right? And I was freaking out, I was fucking raised Catholic, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Put it there. And the older guy said, this is something that the other guys pray to in fear, so you need to imbue that fear within you. So wear this scapular, use this. I learn about this iconography because it's going to be used against you. So learn it now.
Do these guys get ritualistic at all? Like in Colombia or in Medellin specifically, a lot of the assassins before they go on a hit and how they do a hit, 9 times out of 10 there is on a fucking moped, you know, drive up, stitch you up.
Yeah.
But they will all go pray at a very specific church.
The significance of the left hand, the significance of the left foot, the significance of coming out of the ground, out of the grave. There's a lot of ceremony that goes on in some of the more occult and kind of deeper levels of some of these rituals, and some of the, both on the police side, because a lot of these government organizations that I used to work with, and a lot of the police organizations that I used to work with would take those things and imbue themselves with them. So I don't know, to equate it like people, snipers in Vietnam, eating locally and dressing locally and smelling locally, that kind of thing. So, you know, people say, Ed, are you like a practitioner of Santa Muerte? Because you wear all that, you kind of use some of that regalia yourself. It's our version of a captured ISIS flag. So we keep what we keep what we get, basically. But some of the rituals that I used to see some of these Sicario guys do, and some of the guys that I work with in police forces, silver was very significant for Santa Muerte. Probably because it has something to do with Judas, or maybe it has something to do with just the availability of silver in northern Mexico, and a lot of parts of Mexico is a very, very rich silver producing thing. But you would, when you would come into a new job, you would get one silver coin, like a silver peso, and somebody would lean into you and tell you in your ear, when this job is over, you'll get another one. And the other one will be on your eyes or in your pocket. It's up to you to pick which one. Right? So that's like a ominous memento mori that we would get. And when you would get in any sort of leadership position, I was the highest I went was a regional sub-commander. And the only reason I didn't get commander was because I was too young. And I got a silver coin at the start and got that ominous warning. And I managed to get the other one and put it in my pocket and just, here, you'll stay. You know, Sicarios will wear silver. They won't wear gold because they think gold is it attracts too much attention from the devil, which is kind of like it's a weird, in Mexico, the devil is a different character. It's not like the devil up here, which is in direct conflict with God. The devil in Mexico is very much kind of he's a counterforce, but he's also a tool that God uses to get people. So somebody's doing something nefarious out there, he won't want to attract attention of the devil. Although he'll use the iconography and the veneration of Santa Muertes to conceal his acts and to give him authority over life and death, basically. Damn. And that's something outside of the norm. So you see a lot of ritualistic stuff in there. Silver grips on the guns, silver skull caps on the boots, silver skull rings, silver rosaries with black stones with skulls on them. You know, there's a lot of iconography out there that could be kind of look at, kind of tell something about the people. I do some classes with law enforcement, kind of familiarizing themselves with that type of stuff that's not out there.
Damn. Well, I think that pretty much covers kind of the structure of the cartels and a lot of that kind of stuff that covers that subject. So let's take another break, and then we'll come back and wrap things up.
Cool.
Well, my fires kind of suck. But my gummy bears don't. Head over to VigilanceElite.com. Buy yourself a bag of gummy bears. And if your fires suck too, get yourself a Vigilance Elite beanie. Keep those grapes warm. Enjoy the show.
All right, Ed, back from the break again, and we're going to wrap this thing up. But I want to cover two things, and the first one being, how do you cope with all the shit that you've seen? We talked about some of the stuff you've seen. We've talked about, the disposing of bodies and some of the gruesome stuff that you've seen the cartel do down there. We covered the fact that you've gone on 2,700 fucking hits.
There's no numbers. It's just a blur of years. It blurs. I don't know how many of those.
Well, 9 years.
That whole experience. Humor is a big part of it, I think. One of the things I've always recognized with other people that I meet that have, people like you that have an experienced base, other people like that had kind of went through their own thing. There's certain commonalities that I see in people like that. Humor is one of them. Usually I can tell a lot about somebody if they don't have a sense of humor. They take themselves too seriously. There's something amiss there.
Yeah.
Humor is one of those big things that has helped me out. It's a good mask.
Yeah.
It's a good cloaking device, humor.
It helps get through the misery when you're in the middle of it too.
I had this one of my closest friends when I was working. His name was Jaramillo. Very infamous name. I've kind of made him famous. It's my way of keeping him alive. He was one of the older guys that I worked with. He was a mess. I mean, he was a dumpster fire inside of a dumpster fire of a person. But he was very loyal, and he was a very good guy. He gave me some of the biggest laughs in my life, usually unintentional, He'd always kind of basically, keep me laughing. He would push me into going into weird places and kind of getting out of my comfort zone and just taking every day as if it's the last one. We went on some weird adventures, including one that included a donkey show, which we won't get into, but and we would always get shit-faced drunk every time we would come back from something.
Yeah.
There's a word that I discovered or learned about up here in the U.S. called PTSD. It's not a word that we know down there in Mexico. There's no concept of a veteran or a support network for people that go through the experiences that I went through. A lot of people that go through those experiences down there. There's no talk about that. There's a sense of machismo. You just take it. It's fine. Just don't go crazy.
Yeah.
So you'd get a few days off. You get to leave, and you would go get drunk, and come back, and you would get asked if you were okay, and you would lie your ass off and say yes, and just go through with it all. Just go through the motions. Jaramillo he went through a lot. He went through most of it with me, and every now and then he would go out, and the reason why we got along, we were completely different people, separated by almost a decade in age. He had a weird fetish for 80s ranchero music, and he wore boots and weird. He would wear the pearly shirts and stuff like that, and he was into that whole weird cowboy kind of culture. And I was not. Grew up as a skater kid, like punk rock, and completely opposites. But what we shared is that we didn't take ourselves too seriously. We'd make fun of ourselves and everything around us, and every time we would go out and partake in some festivities and get drunk, we would get, we would try and get comatose. That's what we would aim after.
Damn.
I don't know if there's a X rating on this, but I'll share a small story about him. It's a funny one.
Let's do it.
One of the times we went through a bad situation once, and we were celebrating that we were still alive. And we got leave and we got money, and we said, you know what? Let's just go out and just get blacked out. We went out and got blacked out, drunk. Not blacked out. We conscientiously went back home after the whole night alone. We were hunting for some sort of female comfort, but we were too much for them, you know? We went back to the house we were renting. I had this house where a lot of us would live, kind of a safe house setting for us. And walked to the door and couldn't open the door. We wanted to pee. Jaramillo's like, I gotta pee. Like, we'll pee over there and I'll pee over here. So I'm standing there really drunk with my handgun, my Glock with a light on it, pointing towards the ground, I went out drinking with my gun, by the way. This is Mexico, different country, different little sets, right? And I hear Jaramillo say, oh no, oh. Like, what's wrong, Jaramillo? Oh, something's wrong. I turn around and point my light at him, you know?
Oh, shit.
Again, it's different times. And he pissed his pants. And I was like, what's up, Jaramillo? There's something wrong. Yeah, you peed your pants. No, there's something wrong. I think my dick is blocked and I have a hole in one of my balls.
What?
That's exactly what I answered. I think my dick is blocked and I have a hole in one of my balls. I didn't understand. Jaramillo, you're not making any sense. So took the light off my gun, a little closer. He pulled one of his balls out to pee.
Holy shit.
He pulled one of his balls. He was so drunk that he pulled one of his balls
That's
out
amazing.
to pee. And he was worried that his dick was blocked and he had a hole in one of his balls. First off, I had to explain biology to him and anatomy and physiology. And I've never laughed more in my life.
How long did it take you to figure that one out?
Oh, it was a process. It was a process. But
let's retrace the steps here.
he pulled one of his balls out. Anyway, so I laughed. I laughed, and he started laughing as well. And it was a solid hour of us laughing out there in the misty morning hours, kind of sobering up with that laughter. And we saw some horrible stuff the night before, and I was medicinal.
Yeah.
That was a moment. I always remember that moment because it was a form of escapism. We would, just get numb. He was one of those characters that, the stories, just legendary stories about him. He kind of taught me a little bit of that laughter part and that humor, just not taking myself too seriously. I think probably the kind of the most scary time or the most dangerous time for people that go through those types of experiences is the end.
Mm.
The bus stopping and letting you out.
Yeah. While
the party is still going on the bus.
Yeah.
And you get left on the sidewalk as the bus moves away. Is the way I like to think about it. The people that you lived, breathed, ate with, suffered with, bled with, are still on the bus.
Yep.
And you have to get out of the bus. When everything stopped, when I had to leave the job and all of a sudden being involved, being in the know, being responsible for all these people, them being responsible for me, having homicide as part of your job description, guns and grenades, smoke grenades there, and just living this life was kind of surreal, but it was the normal. That was my normal for years.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, last call. Everybody out. Some people stayed on, and you're not a part of it anymore. And everything stops and gets quiet.
Yeah.
That's probably the most dangerous and closest I've been to ending, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people don't come back from or can't escape from when everything stops. That's I don't know. It's like when you're too busy to notice that you got cut, or when you're doing some sort of maybe you're training jujitsu and you got something really extended somewhere it shouldn't have been, but you're warm so you don't feel it until you stop, and then you start realizing how screwed you are physically
and mentally.
Yeah. When
mentally.
You start counting your wounds. You start realizing how all of a sudden the family you had around you and all of you shared the same injuries. Maybe all of you saying the same outlook in life or the same normalcy. All of a sudden you're taken out from that, and now you have to relate to people that have never been through that, never gone through anything similar to that, and you realize how abnormal you are.
Yeah.
And how out of place you are in a simple setting as going to a restaurant with your family and trying to figure out what the best place to be is, trying to figure out who there is armed, or being distracted, not being in the moment, and then basically that being a sacrifice and that being detrimental to your family health. And all that comes with it. Sleep disorder, substance abuse, alcohol, drugs for some people, not being able to find the right words to explain to somebody, there's no words to explain it to somebody. I think Alan Watts talks about poetry. That's what poetry is. Putting into words what is unexplainable. I do writing, a lot of writing, and I try and put into words what I can't explain. And I couldn't find people that I could, explain some of this stuff to until I found, a veteran community in California when I moved up there and started doing classes and meeting people that had service experience. And I started kind of figuring out that there was a name for what I had, that other people were struggling with going to the store and going into an anxiety or panic attack at a restaurant because somebody was doing something that manifested a moment or an event in the past. I don't know how it's been for you, but when some of these things come back into your headspace, it's almost like there's no time.
Yeah.
You're there, you're here, you're both like everything's happening at the same time, and people around you don't realize this. Something horrible you saw, something horrible that happened, and something you see, and then the environment triggers it, and you're back there and you're here, and you express it through an anxiety attack, of an outburst of some sort, apathy in the relationship you might be having at the moment with somebody, or you just shut off and you go sleep in a closet for a few weeks because that's your safe place.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You just kind of asked like if I went through it. Fuck yeah, I went through it. And I went to therapy for twice a day, almost for three years, or not twice a day, twice a week for 3 years, and I still fucking struggle with it. It gets better, but it's you got to be willing to invest your time into it and want to fucking pull yourself out. I had a wake up call. And I tried to kill myself in my car in my fucking garage, and I don't even remember it. But to be honest with you, my whole fucking house should have gone up in flames, but for some fucking reason it didn't.
Now, I'll ask this question. It's something I hear a lot. That's not the easy way out. For somebody like you, for somebody like me that tried to be alive and stay alive for that long, that's not an easy exit.
No.
I get this easy out mentality from some people that don't understand what that is. That's actually going against everything in your being and nature.
Yeah.
To leave. I've contemplated and thought about and maybe approached that a few times myself. My whole thing is that is completely counter to the nature of what I am and what I became during that whole time, where I was trying to figure out ways of surviving. And every time I hear somebody say that they took the easy way out, I don't think that's true for most people that went through some of that stuff. Also, the honesty and being open to talk about this. Where I'm from, you talk about what I'm talking about right here. This is the end of your career.
Yeah.
You are local, crazy. You are non-functional. You're not to be trusted. I write some of these flashbacks down at times. I share them openly. It's a very personal thing to share some of that stuff openly.
Yeah.
Not easy again. Not easy. It helps if you talk about it. It's like I heard from a therapist. It does, but it hurts a lot. It's like peeling off a scab.
Yeah.
And showing somebody this is what was under that scab, so you can see it. Here you go. Now, forget about the scab. Forget about the wound that you just saw. Treat me like a normal person. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There's a stigma to it, and I think the stigma up here in the U.S. is, there's more there's a bit more conscience about it. There's a bit more of a community and support around it, and that's not something I had when I was going through that down there.
There is now, but it hasn't been around for very fucking long. When I left the SEAL teams, there was none of that shit, and it was exactly what you were saying.
Was there a culture of suck it up?
Yeah. Fuck yeah, there was. There probably still is. I know it's better now, but
and again, I think when you go back and kind of learn, I'm into history and I like reading about other warrior cultures and people that did things that they had to do. PTSD has always been with us.
Yeah,
it's been. This is what you talked about, your experience. What I'm talking about. We're not talking about anything new. This is the history of the world.
Yeah.
But I think there's something that happened culturally that separated us from how people used to handle some of these things, or how some people would talk about some of these things. From spirit quest, as they used to call them, or finding yourself, or going off on these pilgrimages, or whatever form they took, ceremony. A ceremony is simply performing an act with a symbology just to convince your subconscious mind of something. So from going to mass and eating a cracker that's supposed to be the body of Jesus, and drinking wine that's supposed to be the blood of Jesus, there's a symbology there. To getting handed a silver coin at the start of a leadership position and getting told that you're going to get another one because you go into it knowing it's going to end.
Yeah.
I think some of those things are missing in some of our kind of modern way of approaching some of these things. Some of these things have been amputated from us. We're suffering from a phantom limb syndrome when it comes to some of these things. What happens after. Like I grew up having parties at the cemetery during Day of the Dead. And I get a weird feeling every time I travel up here and I see empty cemeteries with no people there. It's they're forgotten dead space. There's no relationship there. I don't know. I think that whole culture of suck it up, be a man, go through it. I get that.
It worked. It fucking worked. It works when you're in it works when you're in it, and it makes you effective.
But when you're off the bus,
when you're out, you're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom used to say that whole, I'll quote that, I'll give that quote again. I went through a few bad situations, but I think one of the first ones, the war that I fought was at home with an enemy that spoke the same language that I did. Every now and then we would share funerary homes with the enemy. The counter guys were being mourned over on that side of the street, and we were having our services for our guys over here. So it was different in that way. I had a very horrible thing happen. Very traumatic. I lost a few people, and I was covered in blood. My clothing was covered in blood. My sneakers, my socks, feel it in my toes. And blood has a tendency to kind of dry out and crust a little bit. I remember I wrote the reports that I had to write and talk to the people that I had to talk, and I was told to go to the hotel and wash up and come back the second day. I got in the car and drove straight home. Like unconsciously, just drove to my parents' house. I drove probably 3 hours in the night straight there. I showed up sometime in the early mornings, and my mom opened the door. She saw, she didn't say anything. She sat me down, took my clothing off, put it in the washer, and made me some coffee. She didn't ask anything. The next morning, I passed out for a bit. And she asked me, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go home. She said, there's no such thing as going back home, Ed. Either you change on your way back to home, or the home you left changes when you're gone, and you don't recognize it when you come back. So she told me, going back home is that train has left the station. There's no going back home. So you have to figure out what that looks like for you next. That was very mind altering.
Yeah.
She lived through a lot herself, so she was very wise.
Sounds like it.
She in her own way, she told me to suck it up. I stood up, and I remember smelling my clothes. They were like downy fresh, She bagged me a lunch, got in the car. I saw all the missed phone calls on my cell phone. People were angry. I went back and faced the music. Told me, where'd you go? So I just needed a moment. I got reprimanded for leaving.
Damn.
But it was I realized that there was no going back home. So that gave me focus on going straight. Surviving, figuring out what where that road would lead me. I was aimless.
It fucking changes you.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to realize your mom was fucking right on the money?
I'd say probably a few days after she passed away. She struggled for a long time with a few issues. And before she went, she told me to leave that job. Leave that thankless job, Ed. That's no longer the war you should fight. That's not your war anymore. She passed away, and I did a lot of self-reflection. Again, I got 2 days off to mourn my mom.
Damn.
She got to meet my kid, which I think was very soothing to my mourning process. And everything kind of aligned after that. She passed away, and a few things kind of shifted politically down there, and I had to leave. She gave me that push at the end, I think. I remember thinking back to that moment, and I wrote it down. I've shared that openly a few times. I remember, and every time I smell that morning coffee, I remember that moment. It kind of brings me back to that weird moment where there's no more innocence. You're facing your mom, and you're not what you were.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Sorry to hear that, but sounds like she was looking out for you, man.
Yeah.
But and sounds like she still is after she passed.
No, she's always here.
Yeah.
And everything I do, she's always been like a big inspiration. It's one of those teachers that you don't recognize as a teacher until they're not there anymore. One of the things she used to do and push me to was volunteer work, and we would go and feed some of the people at the Tijuana Canal, and heroin addicts. She gave me the eyes to see humanity, even at the lowest levels. I remember one of the first self-defense classes I gave was through a church group that would work with some of the prostitutes in Tijuana. And that was my mom pushing me to do that. Oh, you know all this cool shit. You think you're some expert and stuff like that. Go teach them. They need it. She gave me eyes instead of dehumanizing people. I think that's probably one of the biggest things she gave me was the human factor, so I can relate to people, I can talk to people, despite that they were trying to kill me. Only a few moments later, I could sit them down, give them a phone, have them phone maybe a family member to tell them they're okay, give them a cigarette, give them a swig of tequila, and talk to people. That's a powerful armor that she gave me with that, and it's something that I've been using to try and process that whole life that I left behind. Again, the world has ended for me a few times over.
Yeah.
So, part of my process to there is no getting better. There is no healing. There's learning how to live with things. There's learning how to find a new normal, how to find a new center or a new base. That's what I think I'm kind of looking towards. And I've been basically on the road for the past 3 years trying to find that for myself. I've not found it yet.
You're in it, man.
What?
You're fucking in it right now.
Well, we all have these moments, right? Where we're trying to figure out where we are in the world, what we're supposed to do. I've been pretty aimless for the past probably 2-3 years, where I'm trying to figure out where I am. I travel on a lot. Every couple of weeks, I'm in a different state. Whole waking up in a hotel room, figuring out where you are, when you are.
Yeah.
That when you are part, that's pretty interesting. Sometimes I dream vivid dreams about being back somewhere, sleeping in a hole or something. Waking up covered in cockroaches or ants because I'm sleeping in a weird field somewhere. Reaching for a rifle that is no longer there. Hearing Jaramillo telling me that it's almost time to wake up. Hearing the radio, sat radio beeping as it's charging in the background. It's like tattoos in your mind. You wake up and you're just brought back into here. And I was driving here, seeing all the green scenery. Seeing all the life around, the trees make noise. Everything's green, everything's good, everything's alive, And you just take this moment. You're like, how did I get here, right?
Yeah.
And why, right? I I think part of the answer to the why is sharing some of my experiences with people and having it resonate with some. I write these small stories I call fever dreams because that's what they are, or like weird flashbacks into a past that I sometimes I kind of question. It's like, was I really there? And I write them down, and all of them are basically just an honest expression of something that happened. And I've gotten a lot of people sending messages that they thought they were the only ones. They thought that nobody felt like that. I gave them the words to describe something that they couldn't. That never being able to go back home quote. I remember sharing it, and a lot of people kind of responded to it and resonated with a lot of people. I think that's probably half of the reasoning why I'm still here. I think there's a story within me that I need to kind of share with people openly. It's very selfish as well, because that helps me out with my process, kind of putting some of these things out.
Well, just you saying that right there is going to fucking help thousands of people, and it's the everything you're describing is like very similar to what I've gone through and what a lot of guys have gone through, and it's that I've worked with or our colleagues, and it's. I mean, you're the first person I've had on the show that is that's an immigrant that fought in a completely different fucking war, and saw a lot of we've seen a lot of some similar things, and the it's similar. It's extremely similar, and it takes a lot of fucking time.
Yeah.
It took me a lot of time, but I mean, fuck, man, it just
the guilt.
Don't stop working at it.
Yeah. Another thing, the guilt. You're here, and a lot of people aren't. You get that every now and then?
Yeah.
Like there's people that are very deserving, people that are not assholes, people that took care of their bodies, that ate healthy. And they're not here anymore. They were with me at some point, and they got eaten up by it. And I'm here, and I don't take care of myself.
Yeah.
I self-flagellate with this guilt whip. Sleepless nights, and I don't take care of myself at times. That's like a common thing I've seen as well with some people. That wanting to keep them alive somehow, maybe by stories, maybe by naming something after them, or I know that's another weird part of it. That guilt you feel every day. You could be a green field petting an alpaca in the middle of this green heavenly field, and thinking about somebody that you might have lost along the way that might have enjoyed that, and you feel guilty about it. I don't know. We all process some of these things in a different way, but there's a commonality with how I've seen a lot of people that kind of went through the same things that I did, how they process it. I always dig finding those similarities. It helps me not feel alone. Again, selfish. I don't know. And I was gonna catch myself when I start feeling that way, but it's just talking about it, being around people that know the words to that song, And it is a song. It's a song that's old as time, I remember sharing this video of this Marine dressed in his dress blues. I think he was a Native American. I don't remember the name of his nation. I was dancing with a war drum. I was dancing with a spear in one hand and a shield in the other. And a lot of people were expressing how beautiful that was, but I didn't know why. He's singing this. He's singing the war songs of his people. He remembers them. He remembers their weapons. He remembers their ancestors. He remembers their names of their ancestors. He is everything that they survived, into the point where he's dancing there in front of them. Ed, but he's dancing in the uniform of the nation that conquered his nation. Yeah, but he's alive. And he remembers his songs that went before. He remembers the weapons of their people. He remembers the culture, the warrior culture. Like, he has an attachment to that. Can you remember the songs of your ancestors? Can you remember the ways that their spears were made? A lot of us suffer from that amputation, that cultural amputation. We don't remember the songs. And I think the one thing that I've always kind of realized recently is that if you don't remember the songs, you make up new ones. And if you see the new guy coming in, you teach him those songs so he can get a semblance of that. Remembering the ones that went before. That's the way you keep them alive. And that's the way you keep the new guys alive.
Yeah.
So this helps. We don't have drums and we don't have fireplaces, but we do have YouTube.
Yeah.
Right? So in that regard, I really appreciate you doing these.
Thank you.
This is the drum that a lot of people are going to hear after we're gone.
Yep.
There's a certain power in keeping some of these conversations alive. I wish I had some of these conversations at the back of my head when I started. We didn't. Right? I think there's a power in that.
I talk to him, I talk to my boys that aren't here anymore, and the guilt, I try to think about if the roles were reversed and I was them and they were alive, would I want them feeling like that, or would I want them to fucking enjoy, like, would I want them to enjoy their life? And, even just the fact, and because that's what we're supposed to fucking do. You were just talking about driving here and seeing all the green and the creeks and the animals and all that kind of stuff. And, that's what 99% of the people in this country see every fucking day. You know what I mean?
Heaven.
They're happy people. And with career paths like with what we chose, we don't experience that. And it takes a long time to get to a point where it's okay.
You can allow yourself to enjoy.
Yep.
Yeah. The people that leave get brighter and younger in our minds. You ever notice that as well?
Yep.
I remember some of the people that I lost were older than I was. And somewhere along the lines of my mind's eye, I passed them along the way. And they get younger and brighter. I hear him sometimes, specifically Jaramillo. It's like a weird voice in the back of my head. He's always advising me to do the wrong things, to take one more beer, to enjoy one more song, to ask a girl to dance. He's a sadist, He wants that. He wants that. He wants me a hedonist. He wants me to partake in all that. And I think that's probably part of my subconscious that just is telling me to enjoy. You're alive. You're allowed to enjoy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's a Catholic guilt in me, built into me when I was a kid. But there's something about enjoying those moments that some of us, struggle with that. Every now and then, I catch myself in this perfect moment. My kid running around, finding Easter eggs. I'm laughing. It's this moment of perfect laughter. Ed, why don't you, there's a weird pain and happiness in that. Not a lot of people can understand.
Well, I'm glad you're feeling it, man. I really am. I got one of those voices too. He's right fucking behind you. That flag up there. But you talk about shamanism.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Have you done any? Have you?
Yeah. I mean, it's Mexico. We're all about it. We have a contact. I come from a culture where we party at the graves. Like during Day of the Dead, we sleep over on gravesides. We have altars to our dead. Necromancy is part of our culture, which is, weird. I heard from somebody up here in Tennessee once. He asked me if I was a Christian. I told him, yeah, I'm Catholic. Oh, so you're not, Yeah, very much a paganistic culture. Shamanism is a big part of it. There's things called veladas. Veladas are basically like they were made famous by a lady, Maria Sabina. Like the Beatles would go down to Mexico when they were like a thing, and they would take these mushroom trips.
Yeah.
Midnight mushroom trips. Psilocybin at the core of most of that.
I've heard a lot of good things about psilocybin and PTSD.
I mean, I've tried the pharmaceutical side of it, and it takes certain things from you when you try and get back to normalcy. So I know. I mean, I'm sure some people have experienced taking some of those pharmaceutical medications and feeling like a zombie, or feeling like you're like on autopilot, or
it's not you.
Like you're in the back seat of a car driving from the back seat. I don't know what. Some of them have helped. Not all of them. I had a few people recommend psilocybin. Basically mushrooms, microdosing and macrodosing. But actually having a process before it, it's not just taking them.
Yeah.
Shamanism in different places. They have the psilocybin and hallucinogenics have a long history in warrior culture. Like even, if you want to talk about Aztecs, some of the Aztec elite warrior castes would go on hallucinogenic trips before they would go out and do whatever they did, and when they would come back, they would do the same. So I remember when I was younger, and went through a bunch of bad, horrible stuff. And one of my vacation times, I took a trip down to southern Mexico and went on one of these veladas, like a spiritual. The shaman woman guides you into a velada. It's like a 12 at night, midnight trip with mushrooms. But one of the things she was very clear about was our intention at the start. Are you here to have fun? Are you here to feel funny? Are you here to work out something? Like, what are you here for? And then she would have us write down our intention on a page. And then after that, we would have to physically write that down with our feet in the form of a pattern on the ground. And a lot of us were exhausted because we had to travel on foot on top of this hill. There was always some weird symbology throughout the whole experience. I think what it takes you towards is like a clear, honest conversation with yourself.
Are you by yourself?
Yeah, you're with people, but when that hits, you're not with people.
I haven't done it.
It's one of those things where I don't recommend everybody. I think not everybody is meant to do it. If you have some sort of issues, it might awaken some things that might be harmful for people. I don't think people should do it recreationally. I think there should be some sort of people that guide you through the process. That's what I've had, and I think it's helped me out tremendously in figuring and processing some of these things. I don't know. I mean, the best way I can explain it is when you it's like a mental fog or like a mental cobwebs you might have. And psilocybin kind of takes some of that away from that process between having something or an event that affected you in a very deep way, and just having that event in your head doing circles and actually inserting yourself in that event and trying to figure it out by reconstructing it. Maybe let's say it's like making a play about something that you had to go through, and then as a director going in there and this could be over here, and I should have done this over here, but I can't change it. So this is the thing. So I had to do all this to figure out that I'm in charge of my own well-being, and it's stupid to try and force something to change that can't change.
Yeah.
So some of those processes I kind of went through. Psilocybin I think there's a lot of potential there. I don't think it should be illegal. I think there's more horrible stuff out there.
The more I hear about it and the more I read about it, I mean,
flaming hot Cheetos should be illegal, not psilocybin. I think that they do more harm. I don't think it's a recreational thing.
Yeah.
I think our ancestors were onto something with that. I think it's probably as old as we are as a species. It does help.
Would you recommend it?
I would.
Absolutely.
I would, again, not recreationally, and do it with people that know what they're doing, and be very sure about your intentions when you go through it. I don't think it's something meant to be done several times. I think it's something you're meant to do a few times maybe. And a lot of us didn't do it at the start to figure ourselves out before we went through the fire.
Yeah.
But I think if anything, we should do it at the end after we come out of it. It helps you process. And I think there's a medicine in that.
That's awesome, man. I've been thinking a lot about it, but let's move on.
Sure.
We covered a lot of material there, and leaves me with one question, and how do we fucking stop the cartels? Is it even possible?
I think there is I think it's not a Mexican problem. It's a regional problem. So that's the first part of the solution. To recognize that we are not only neighbors intertwined by blood, commerce, criminal organizations. We are a country that is very much linked. We're very much a symbiotic relationship going on. And it's a regional problem. So treating it as anything else than that is a problem. Also, I pay taxes up here now, so I can say this. Every single person out there who's an American that pays taxes is paying for the drug war in different ways. Even though you don't know it, a lot of your tax money is going down there and funding companies that make a living off that drug war, keeping its status quo. So, as an example, when I was down there, all of my uniforms were bought that I would have to wear. They were all bought through a specific uniform tactical company that is American based, which I won't name. But they make a killing off that drug war. All of the vehicles that we ride, ever wonder why every police corporation down there rides around in a pickup truck? There's a deal. There's a vested interest in there. Americans need to demand that their representatives account for the money that's being sent down there, outsourcing that drug war, and why things are getting worse instead of better, despite that the money and the budget is getting higher. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The way they're fighting the war is exactly the same way they've been fighting the war since I started.
Yeah.
So there's something wrong with the whole process there, and it starts in the U.S. as far as the fight goes. Legalize marijuana federally. Honestly, it's not going to do any difference now. May have done a difference back 20 years back, maybe 15 years back, but right now I think we're at a point where cartels have moved on from that substance. So realistically, having that as a Schedule 1 substance federally, that won't make a difference if you legalize it or not. But I'd say legalize it. Go after not only the money that is related to that cartel by the money that flows in and out of those organizations, and there's ways of going after it. That's not my specialty, but I realize that if you give those groups a designation as terrorist, I think the U.S. will have more tools to combat those organizations. And I think finally, there is no fighting the cartels without going into fighting a systemic corruption at high-level politics in Mexico at all levels. There's no such thing. You can't go down there and clean out the cartels and expect everything to go better. There is a snake with two heads down there. On one end of the spectrum, there's the cartels, and on the other end of the spectrum is politics. These organizations can't subsist down there without some sort of help from the other side of that snake. So, and it doesn't even matter if they're from the right or the left down there. They all respond to money. So any sort of help or any sort of nation building, as America calls it, or any sort of offer to help Mexico is always going to be met with resistance, because we don't want American interventionism in the country. And all that's going to be pushed forward and pressed forward by the political class down there, because it's not in their best interest to get rid of the status quo. So again, the problem is systemic.
Yeah.
I think there's no solution without solving the problem at both of those ends. I do believe that there's going to be a time in the near future where America as a country is going to have its hands forced into a conflict within Mexico. There's going to be some sort of event related to natural resources, to foreign influence. I thought that event might have been the massacre in the desert in Sonora, the American women and children, but I don't think that's enough anymore. I think, and that's a sad thing to say, that's not enough.
Yeah.
To force action. That's not enough to declare them a terrorist organization. You know, hey, Ed, they're not a terrorist organization. They don't have any clear political motives. Yes, they do. You want to talk about political killings? Mexico is the world capital of political killings. Cartels assassinate political candidates. Cartels assassinate members of the press when they report things that they don't want to be reported. So they clearly have political motives. They clearly are interested in having certain people in certain places power down there. So it is very much an organization that is politicized. They very much work within political structures to further their influence. And they hang people from bridges.
Yeah.
They cut heads off. They burn people alive. They torture people and put them on videos that then get dispersed on the internet. All the ISIS torture videos and execution videos were inspired by cartel videos that came out before them. So even ISIS is taking pointers from these criminal groups.
Yeah.
And for some reason, which is probably related to the influx of immigrants seeking asylum, now having the legitimate claim of fleeing from a terrorist organization into the U.S., maybe that has something to do with the U.S.'s refusal to name them a terrorist organization. But I think they fit every single description of that of an organization that is a terrorist organization and more. As far as Al Qaeda or ISIS, stuff like that, I don't see any of them operating in multi-million-dollar businesses in the U.S.
Yeah. I mean, even if everything, controlling the money and all of that, I mean, the longer the longer we take to do it, China's right there, and it sounds like they've been there a lot longer than I thought after talking to you. But I don't know, it's very even with our military, and the technology that goes along with it, it is almost impossible to defeat an enemy that does not play by rules when you are forced to fucking play by rules.
Yeah.
And until the general populace decides that it's fucking bad enough that we don't need to play by those rules anymore, in my opinion, it's never gonna fucking go away. So you better get used to it.
And I think the world has witnessed the power of the U.S. military, and as somebody that's worked down there and I've seen it up here and have friends and that work in that environment, I know the U.S. can change that landscape really quickly if they wanted to, if they had the political backing, and if they had the ability to do so. It's not going to be easy. This isn't an enemy that lives across the ocean.
Yeah.
This is not an enemy that lives across the ocean. I've heard conversations about what they would do if a full-scale invasion happened or an armed intervention in Mexico would happen by U.S. military forces, and what the cartel's response would be when they felt threatened. You'd hear, then again, this is by an organization that is not labeled a terrorist organization. Well, if the U.S. decides to intervene, we'll just randomly poison drug loads going into the U.S. and create a health crisis in this country that you have never seen in your history.
Damn.
Now imagine that reaction. This is an organization that can take pictures of people going in and out of Coronado. They have access to that, that area. They can take notes and numbers. They can go on social media. They can discover where people live. They can make you want to go back home really quickly.
Yeah.
They can get to you. It's not, again, this is not an organization that lives in a cave system somewhere in Afghanistan. These are guys that don't have their own cell phone networks. These are guys that operate multi-billion-dollar business of drug trafficking. These are people that have tunnels underneath the border that could go put anything in there. It's not uncommon to back in the post 9/11 era that Americans would put Geiger counters in those drug tunnels because they were worried about what could get through. Now imagine somebody that's like an organization that is not worried about that anymore.
Yeah.
All they're worried about is retribution. That'd be a bad day, I think. It's not as easy as some people make it out to be. Oh, just send the military down there and we'll clean everything up. I think it's a problem that if you leave long enough to fester, it's gonna
snowball. Oh fuck, it already has.
I think within our lifetime we'll see it. There's gonna be some event on the border. There's gonna be some sort of. I think the sad thing is, it's probably not going to be even related to American blood spilled and or drugs. That's probably going to be a resource issue. But we'll see that intervention within our lifetimes probably. I was saying 5 years, and I'm still at that 5-year mark in my mind. I say 5 years because of the presidency going on down there and the incompetence. It's almost comical incompetence as far as how it's handling the drug, the cartel issue and the violence issue, and how it's each year it's just becoming worse and worse. So I don't know. I just know that there's no such thing as a Mexican solution or an American solution. It has to be a regional solution. And I'm not expecting the UN to step in at any time soon.
Yeah. Well, I think we're going to wrap this thing up, but I just want to say, man, I really appreciate you making the trip, and Your story is fucking amazing, dude. So, this is gonna help a lot of people, especially with that one segment. And you know, I know it sounds like you're kind of still searching for a purpose, but I'm telling you, man, you're fucking killing it. And you probably are very similar to a lot of my friends, and you don't reflect on your own success. And you know, but I'm just gonna tell you, you're fucking killing it, dude. And you're doing a great job, and you're spreading a fucking great message, and you're bringing to awareness to shit that people need to fucking hear about. So you know, keep it up, keep it up.
Thank you for the reminder. Sometimes
Yeah.
I need a kick in the ass to keep going.
Right on, man. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.